Shields up, Ironbreakers, and welcome to another Cast episode. Today I'm here with Paradise and TwoSixNine. How are you guys doing?
Hey.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
I'm excited. I'm actually really excited to be here. Rurikhan, can I tell you a little story? Can I just derail us before we start?
Go for it. That's what we're here for.
I've been a Rurikhan fan for many years now.
No way. No shot.
I want to tell you, if you remember this, when I was first streaming, this was years ago. This was maybe even pre-Monster Hunter World, like years ago. You were one of the first people to host me. And I don't know if you remember doing that, but it was from that moment that I was like,
wait,
let me check this guy out.
This was before World? No,
I think it was. I think it may have been. It may have been maybe right at the beginning. It might have been pre-World. I remember it was when I was.
Yeah, it was probably at the beginning of World. It was probably at the beginning of World because I remember that I saw because World was when I became aware of both you and 2.6. Because I saw a stream and I think it was 2.6, Socks, and Eric's, where you guys were talking about Monster Hunter World and stuff and whatnot, and I was like, huh. Who are they? I hadn't heard of you. Yeah, no, seriously, because it's hey, that's just the way that it goes, right? You know people like that, and you're just like, oh, that's cool. It's cool stuff that they're doing and whatnot. And then only afterwards, then I was like, oh right, Eric's. I know this channel. He's the guy who does that Destiny stuff or whatever. Because that's the idea that I had. So I was like, interesting. Why is a Destiny guy coming into Monster Hunter? This is a little bit weird. But yeah, I had a very different idea of what you guys were like. But yeah, then I also became aware of you because then I was watching Eric's over some Monster Hunter stuff, and I saw Paradise making a video on, I think it was Switch Axe, because that's what you were maining at the time, I think, right?
It may have been, yeah. Switch Axe is my OG main. See, you remember.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, ever since back then, I've been I got a special place in my heart for Rurikhan, and I don't know if you see, I do a little comment here or there. I'm a bit of a lurker, you know how people lurk in streams.
I've seen some comments, yeah.
I'm a YouTube lurker, but I do really enjoy it, and I think I've watched a lot of Third Fleets, but I'm happy to be here for
podcast. That's the thing. I wanted to start by apologizing to you, Paradise, because I was able to still get 2.6.9 in before the Final Fantasy 14 incident. You were gonna go into Third Fleet as well, but then it's that we had the Final Fantasy 14 incident, and now it's yep,
he's gone.
He's gone. He's consumed. I respect it though. I get addicted to MMOs as well, and yeah, when I look back, I've got thousands of hours. I wouldn't say wasted, but gone to MMOs. So yeah, I respect it.
Gaijin is the true warrior of light. He's gone on that journey. He's I've never seen him sweat someone sweat a game so hard as well. Because that game is pretty long, and I know it was 2 or 3 months. Afterwards, he's oh yeah, I got all these characters level 90. My girlfriend plays Final Fantasy 14. She doesn't have all the characters, and she's been playing for years. She doesn't have all the characters to that level, and it's just he has been sweating that game.
No, listen, you guys don't even have an idea of how much he's been sweating it. Let me just paint you guys a very quick picture. When I first introduced him to the game, he was asking me about the different types of content that the game has, right? And dude, I gotta be careful with broaching this topic, because if I get either of you hooked on it, this is a problem for me. The community will come for me. They will end my career. They'll be like, Rurikhan, we need to put you down. You're too dangerous to be kept alive. No, but seriously, he asked me about the type of content. I'm like, well, you have your normal raids, and then you have extremes, which are extreme trials, which is kind of a little bit harder. And then above that, you have ultimates, which is the hard mode of the raids. And then, no, not ultimates. You have Savage, which is the hard mode of the raids. And then on top of that, there's ultimates, which is the ultimate possible challenge that you can get in Final Fantasy 14. So for the current
I kind of want to try it now, actually.
Oh, no. So for the current raid tier, Gaijin has done all of the extremes. Which I kind of I basically formed up a group to get him started on his first couple of extremes, because that's what he wanted to do. He told me, I just want to do extremes. I don't want to do Savage because that's too hard. I don't want to do Ultimates because that's too hard. He told me specifically, I don't want to do these things. I was like, okay, fine. I'll get a group together because Extremes are kind of like somewhat easy. And I had a group of people, we had a static going. So I was like, I'll just get Gaijin in here and we'll kind of like push him through and we'll explain to him how it works. So I think we did 2 Extremes with him, which was Zodiark and Heidelin. And then, that was it. I did those 2 Extremes and that was it. After a while, I realized that he was doing Savage raiding in Party Finder. Which that is just like with randoms, okay? With randoms.
That's it.
He progged the entire raid tier, which is currently like 8 raid bosses. He progged it all the way up to the 7th raid boss through Party Finder. Then he made a static and cleared the final one, which I didn't even clear. I quit. Savage raiding because the 8th one I was like, this is too much. This is just like, nah, you guys are pushing it too far. I'm not into it. It's taken, like I was raiding 6 hours a week and I was like, this is way too much. I have 2 kids. I don't have time to be taking like 6 hours a week. I can't do it anymore. So Gaijin did that. But not only that, he also, I think, has cleared at least 1 ultimate. And I think he's shooting to go clear another one or something like that. So he's like, he's already surpassed me. Like Yuna, his daughter, like she is way better player than I am at 14. But she will beat both me and Gaijin put together. That's how good she is at the game. She's insane. She's doing fantastic parts and stuff. But yeah, that's what's been happening with Gaijin. In case anybody's curious, he's living in that world. But I think that it's also important to point out that like one of the big things that I think keeps him hooked on it is that he plays it with Yuna. Like that's it. It's like you're playing the game with your daughter. It's like it's quality time. The game is fun. It's like, I mean, come on, of course. That's just a natural thing. If I could play 14 with my kid, he's way too young. I'd probably be playing a lot more 14 as well. That's why I'm starting my kid with Monster Hunter.
Like grown up on Final Fantasy 14. That would have been like a crazy game to grow up on.
Yeah,
we grew up on like WoW and like those MMOs, and WoW was good. Like, don't get me wrong, it made me. WoW's one of those games that made me who I am today, and I'm sure that's it for like a lot of people. There's certain games that come along and you just like they are part of your character. But Final Fantasy 14 seems like a well-rounded game, and I love Final Fantasy. It's just sad that like.
It didn't click. It didn't click for you. Yeah.
Didn't click.
Like I get it. It's a very hard game to get into. Particularly like going through Realm Reborn is very challenging, which is where a lot of people end up falling off. But I also grew up with World of Warcraft. There was a time in my life where I was like, I don't need any other games. I just play World of Warcraft and that's it forever. I'll never need anything. I started with so first I made a dwarf hunter.
Oh my god!
I knew it would be a dwarf, but I wasn't expecting hunter.
So I made a dwarf hunter, and I was like, "Oh, this is really fun." I shoot, and there's a bear with me, and this is great. And then I go to like this website that's WoW Census that kind of just tells you what is the population like, what is the number of classes that exist, and whatnot. And it was like, "Oh, everybody plays a hunter." Let me try and play something that's going to be very good for the group. So I made a dwarf priest, and I go to a dungeon, and I go on the dungeon, and the tank that was there was just terrible. He was completely atrocious, and that's when I realized, aha, well, the important one is the tank. He sets the pace, he tanks the mobs, he does the thing, and then I started Dwarf Warrior, and that was my main the whole way through.
Like, what expansion was that you were playing? Was that Burning Crusade?
That was vanilla. That was vanilla, but it was at the very tail end of vanilla. Okay. So, like, I didn't really get, like, the big grind that everybody did. Like, by the time Burning Crusade came out, I was level 56.
Cool.
I wasn't even capped, but yeah, I crossed the dark portal at, like, level 58 or whatever and went on to the Burning Crusade. And Burning Crusade, I started raiding and doing that stuff, which is why it became kind of like a no-life game at that point.
It was so good,
So both of you played World of Warcraft as well, then?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think World of Warcraft really sold me because I like a little bit of PvP, right? So
yeah,
when you could gather a group, like a proper raid party, just in the open world, and go over to all the like alliance cities and raid them as a group as well. That was,
of course, you were hard. Because of course you were.
Yep. It wasn't my choice. I wanted to be Alliance. I was playing with Alex.
See, I always liked you 2-6.
Exactly.
So
I think
Eric
that the
was the
Alliance
one who
had-
wanted to be Horde.
Yeah,
Of course.
yeah, definitely. I was like, I wanted to be Alliance because like the character models like look better on the Alliance side, but I think it was Blood Mages
Easy
came.
W.
Was it? Yeah, Blood Elves. Blood Elves came out then.
Blood Elves, sorry.
Yeah. Blood
So I
Elves,
was like, all right,
Burning
I'll take a
Crusade.
Blood Elf because they're really cool. Yeah,
So you played Blood Elf Mage?
Blood Elf Warlock.
Blood
essentially.
Elf Warlock, okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Paradise?
So I didn't play vanilla WoW. I'll tell you why. I was one of those kids back in the day that was like, I can't do the sub. I don't have enough money. I can't do the
But
sub.
listen, that's why I only came in at like the tail end of Burning Crusade, because I was like, imagine going up to your parents and being like, "So, Dad, I need money for a video game," and he's like, "Yeah, sure," and I was like,
Every month.
but every month, and he was like, "You're crazy." So only by the time I got like a job, then I was like, "Hey, now it's my money. I can spend it how I want. I'm gonna go play World of Warcraft."
So that was the same for me, but what that meant was at that time period, I was playing all of the free to play MMOs.
Oh,
So
okay.
I've played like Perfect World, Forsaken World, Aeon, even like back in the day, like Fiesta. If it was free to play, I pretty much played it in the MMO space, just because I just couldn't play WoW, and I always wanted to. And when I did finally play WoW,
Did you play?
I loved it for a while, but then like I feel like BFA just kind of like tailed. Yes, I couldn't do it. I couldn't really do it after that. But
So
we did play some classic WoW, and so I got my vanilla WoW experience, which I really wanted. And I did play Warrior too, by the way, which was my favorite.
Warrior's the way to go, dude. Listen, Warriors have been paying taxes for vanilla since ever. Because in vanilla, they were like the only viable tanks. So basically, ever since then, Blizzard was like, well, now you got to suck forever. That's how you guys were so good in vanilla, you need to suck forever. Only now in Dragonflight, I mean, there were other expansions where they were kind of okay, but yeah. Dragonflight, though, I will say, like, I've always quit most World of Warcraft expansions going like, man, this game sucks now. I hate it. I don't like it anymore. And Dragonflight was the first time that I was like, I don't feel like playing anymore, but this expansion is really good. I was like, yeah,
okay.
They did a good job. Like, listen, Dragonflight might even be the reason why I actually ended up being like, okay, I'll check out Diablo 4. I'll check it out. Because like, Blizzard with Dragonflight, I feel like they did right by their consumers. I still don't like the WoW token. I think the WoW token is disgusting, but, you know, whatever.
Is that the one that you can buy with gold in game to like increase your sub?
Yes, you buy with gold in game to increase your sub, or you buy with real money and you sell it to other players to make
to get rich.
to get
rich
rich
quick.
Yeah, so basically you can buy in-game gold with real money, and it's like I don't like that. I think that's a terrible practice. I don't like it at all.
Oh yeah, you hate microtransactions, don't you? Because I remember when the Monster Hunter stuff kicked off, you were like, I hate the world! Why is this a thing? Microtransactions!
No. It's like, listen, I don't hate microtransactions. That's a bit of a misconception. It's like, I understand that moving forward, microtransactions are unfortunately going to be a thing that it's just going to be present in most games. So to me, it's like, whether or not the game provides you with an alternative to the microtransaction of comparable quality in-game. It's like, so like, for instance, in the case of Monster Hunter, it never really bothered me with the whole thing where like, oh, we sell you layered armor. That doesn't bother me because there's a ton of high-quality armor that you can layer in the game already. That's not a big deal. Now, you're probably talking about the, what are they called?
The
Lost Code weapons, yeah. That bothered me. Why? Because it has a unique sheathing animation that no other weapon in the game has. That's the only reason that bothers me. Because it has a unique... It's not even anything special. Like, it's not even, oh man, it looks so amazing. It's like, no, it just kind of like shrinks down and whatever, transforms into a crystal, whatever. But that's why that bothered me. Because it's like, there's no other weapon in the game that does anything comparable to this. So this is a higher tier product that you actually can't get in the game. Because like, I buy microtransactions. For instance, I've bought the music from older Monster Hunter games, both on PC and on Switch. So like, I even double dip microtransactions for the extra music because I really like the old Monster Hunter music.
Microtransactions
to
in
be
Monster
fair,
Hunter, Go on.
Oh, so I was just gonna say, to be fair, I can kind of get where you're coming from in terms of like those layered things having unique effects.
Yeah.
For instance, if you're a player that isn't going to buy the microtransactions, can't spare the money or something like that, and your gaming squad are dropping it on that, and you're hunting with them, and they've all got these flashy weapons, I can see why that would hurt, you know. And so I do understand it from like that angle.
Yeah, I feel like just Monster Hunter and microtransactions is a weird one because they built up this cadence where they don't essentially need it, but Monster Hunter in general is in a weird place when it comes to additional content because the free DLC updates are something that the community wants and
They
likes,
cost money.
but they cost money and it doesn't satiate the community in any way. It's not like an update comes out and people are like, that was enough monsters. Oh, those monsters were brilliant. Because sometimes they are good, but lots of the time people are complaining about them being reskins or just variations or subspecies of the monsters that we already have in the game. And what people want is a brand new skeleton, a brand new monster that they've never experienced before, in a way that we kind of were getting with maybe kind of like Safi Jiva, even though Safi Jiva was in the base game, but like an actual new skeleton, like it will be something that we've never experienced in Monster Hunter before. And I think maybe the way that we actually do get that is through microtransactions, but that's a scary proposition when it comes down to...
That is a very scary proposition.
Yeah. When it
It's
comes
like-
down to it, because, yeah.
My thing is always like, and this is one of the reasons why I heavily push Monster Hunter. So like whenever somebody asks me, hey, would you recommend this in Monster Hunter? I'm always like, yes, you should definitely play. There's still people like, hey, Rory, is Rise worth it? Yes, it's 1,000,000% worth it. Rise, Sunbreak, fantastic, absolutely amazing game. Like, is it as good as World? Like all of that, all of those conversations you can have back and forth. Some people like one more, some people like other ones better, whatever. But it's like, I think it's worth it because at the end of the day, what I want is I want Capcom to make more money by selling more games as opposed to selling more microtransactions. That's the point. That's the point that I want. I want them to make as much money as possible by selling more games because it's like you're not making $10 off of weapon. You're making 50 bones off of, well, probably less because now the game's heavily discounted all the time. But, you know, whatever. That's kind of like where I'm at because I understand they need to make more money. And I think that in a way, in part, the community sometimes can be a little bit unfair because, you know, you look, for instance, there's people that have been around since like the older games, right? Yeah. And they look at the events and stuff that would happen in older games where, oh, we're just going to put a bunch of monsters, put all of these crazy things into the game. And you also need to realize it's like, yeah, but look at what those monsters looked like back then and look at what the monsters look like now, okay? It's a little bit more work to make monsters now than it was back in the day because there were much more simpler models, simpler skeletons, even simpler AI to an extent, right? So, yeah.
But some people don't care about that. They're just like, oh, yeah, I'd rather have those graphics and better gameplay or whatever. And that's an argument because maybe you enjoy that kind of... gameplay, but microtransactions, I don't think the community is really going to ever get behind them. If Capcom ever did come out and say, oh yeah, we're doing like a paid DLC monster, where people would be mad. In my head, weirdly, and I tweeted this, all right, people got super mad about it, I'll say it again, but like in my head, we kind of been paying for monsters anyway, because DLC expansions are essentially microtransactions that's wrapped up in a different kind of format. It's essentially bundled all for you. You're bundled weapons, you're bundled like maps, you bundled all of this stuff into one, and it's not too far off if we were to go into that. But the way that Capcom set it up has been a better functioning version of that. They're way ahead of the game when it comes to like expansions and stuff, and we've been getting them for years, and they've been pretty good. Like the ultimate version's been spicy.
Definitely. Yeah. I will go back to say though, like you said about the background tracks as DLC. I think they're like the perfect kind of DLC because it's not intrusive. You can take it or leave it, but it adds that. I don't know if quality of life is like the right word, but there's something so nice about having that song that you want in your lobby, and it doesn't affect anyone else. And you're like, okay, I'll pay a couple bucks for it or whatever. And I think that's the best kind of DLC, to be honest.
And I
I've
think
definitely bought a few. I'll say I bought a few.
of course, but it's like I think one of the good indicators that stuff is a particularly good microtransaction is that a lot of people don't even know that they exist because Capcom doesn't really push it. They don't really shove it in your face, right?
Yeah.
Because I get a lot of people, it's like, oh, Rurikhan, did you mod your game? Like, how are you getting the Celiana track? And I was like, I bought it, you know? But, yeah, it's like, again, I'm not against microtransactions. I just think that if they wanted to have the Lost Code weapons, they... In the case of the Lost Code specifically, I think one, and I talked with Gaijin about this, one good way of doing it would be like, say, for instance, you can do an event quest, which is a one-time thing, and you get one ticket, and you get to craft one of the Lost Code weapons, and then the other ones you have to buy.
Yeah,
like
I think
that would be fine. I would not complain at all, and I would probably even buy all of them, even though I only play Gunlands.
Yeah, and I think that's what the problem is with like microtransactions in general, and especially the Lost Code stuff. Microtransactions are good if they feel fair. If they're not fair, and there's no like way for you to earn that in game, or players feel like they're being cheated, which it did feel like with the Lost Code weapons, then the community's not going to rally behind that. It didn't feel right to me, and I buy like COD skins on like other games and stuff like that. So it's like it was really just out there, really. So it's nice to see. Well, hopefully in the future, it's nice to see that they could probably listen to the community and kind of rein that in a bit. But they did come out with the plushies, and then everybody was like, "Yeah, the plushie weapons! I'm gonna buy that." Forget what I said. And I'm like, okay.
Nobody resisted the plushies.
Yeah.
I also did
too cute to resist.
I also didn't buy the plushies. I also heard that there was like a thing where people were kicking people off of lobbies because they had and I was like, okay, that's just maybe a step too far. I was like, look, if it's your lobby, you're entitled to do whatever you want, but it's like, I'm not going to kick people from my lobbies if they have plushies or Lost Code or whatever. It's like, but people are free to protest however they want, but it's like...
Do you think it could have been a timing thing, though? Like, say the Lost Code weapons came out at the same time as a really hype collaboration or new monster, like we talked about before, that also gave a new set of weapons for you to farm, like that are of equivalent level. Say they're in an alternative world, they dropped a new monster, maybe it's a collaboration that has equivalent level special sheathing animations, and then they're like, and in this update we'll also drop the Lost Code ones that are different, an alternative that look really cool, but you can only buy them. Do you think that people wouldn't have been as upset if they had something somewhat equivalent to farm? I
don't know about people, but for me, I wouldn't have been upset at all. It wouldn't have, if that's the way that they had handled it, I would be like, yep, that's fine. I'll buy the Lost Code. Like that would have been fine for me. No problem whatsoever. But again, this is my personal way of looking at this, because like I said, to me, it's just like, can I get something of comparable value in game? Or is it like you're spending more resources developing these things for microtransactions and the stuff in the game gets like second treatment? That's the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
So if it was like you were saying, Paradise, I'd be like, yeah, this is fine. I'll buy them. I'll buy the bundle, whatever that has all the weapons, because at the end of the day, I also want to support the game.
Yeah. I think that's the problem with Rise as a whole, right? They didn't really invest into the event quests, and that's what really burnt people as a whole, because those event quest rewards were just basically like titles, and then they were just like, here's all the weapons that you've been missing from your event quest, buy them for $14.99, have fun. And it's just like so yeah, it was a different landscape. Maybe if they did it, there's ways to do it, and they definitely went about it incorrect, and that's a rare Capcom L when it comes to Monster Hunter and like microtransactions, I think. So I think in general they've done pretty well over the years.
I think it's a learning. I think it's a learning experience for them. So it's whatever. I'm with Capcom and how solid they've been in terms of delivering content for Monster Hunter, at least. Like when I talk about Capcom, I always like to separate specifically the Monster Hunter team. When it comes to the Monster Hunter team, right? They've been super solid. So to me, they earn the benefit of the doubt for at least, let's say, at least like 3 or 5 more mistakes.
Yeah.
Then after that, I'm going to be like, is it a mistake or is it a pattern at this point? I don't know. But, because again, I think that when it comes to value, Monster Hunter delivers tons of value to people who play Monster Hunter. I think that's indisputable.
Yeah, it's one of those
definitely.
rare games that you spend £70 and you can actually play for like thousands of hours, which is like
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that a lot.
That's just it. Like I remember talking about like not being able to buy the WoW sub. It was all about the pound to hour ratio. of entertainment. And so you think of like the cinema, right? It's like it's even more expensive now, but it's like 20 or 30 bucks for a cinema ticket, you get like 1 to 2 hours of a movie.
Yeah.
Video games, Monster Hunter, like you say, well, especially if they're on discount, the amount of hours to dollars or pounds that you get is really efficient, and I can see that's why a lot of people love the genre, to be honest.
Yeah. So, real quick, what weapons have you guys been maining in Sunbreak?
Oh, that's a hard question because I love to try everything. So I'm a bit of a jack of all trades.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite son? Come on, let's go. Let's get some drama going. Who's your favorite son?
So are we talking specifically like Sunbreak and not Base Rise?
Yeah.
Because it was different for me. It was totally different between Base Rise and Sunbreak. So for Sunbreak, I went back to Switch X because I dropped Switch X for Base Rise. But when Sunbreak came out and you got that counter
Dude,
on
the
Switch
counter
X,
was spicy. Yeah.
that was everything I wanted for the Switch X in one, and it just changed the weapon and gave me my love back for it as my main. And it's hard not to use it when you have such a satisfying counter like that. And it's not like an easy mode counter either. You have to set up and activate it, so it's not just on a button press. I feel like there's a bit of timing involved.
There definitely
whereas,
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas if I go back to Base Rise, I love the dual blades, and you had that instant press, one silk bug, dodge basically, which just kind of, I loved it, but it was kind of like a cheeky move to use. It was quite easy to evade attacks with that, especially for one silk bug. But yeah, it was Switch X for me in Sunbreak.
How about you, 2-6?
I predominantly use the longsword. Like normally, I'm traditionally like a.
That's it. This
range
podcast
player.
is over. That's it. I don't want to hear anymore.
I'm moving between weapons basically at the moment, but I've landed on a hunting horn essentially, and that's just I'm just doing. Like I never used hunting horn because of the whole of world and all the games before that. Like hunting horn was like the bottom of my list for weapons to use, but I've really been liking it in like Sunbreak and just having fun with it and just like knocking things out and playing songs and just jamming in the background.
It's definitely a really fun weapon. The changes that they've made. It's just a little bit sad that for some of the old school duders, they're like, oh man, this is not my weapon. This is like way too different. It's a weird thing because like I can understand if they were to change the gun lance to a point where it'd be completely unrecognizable, would I like it? I don't know. I'd have to see it. But, yeah. But I definitely think that it to me personally, like as someone who never really used the weapon all that much, like I did my guide back in World, but it was a very basic guide to kind of just like, hey, here's how the songs work. Here's the double song system or whatever it was that we had back then, and here you go. This is the weapon. But yeah, in Rise and Sunbreak, I was actually like, no, this is really good. There was a time when I was bringing a couple of people into the game, and I was just thinking, you know what, I'll just play the hunting horn, and it got so disgusting because one of them was playing longsword. So I would buff the crap out of him. This was like base Rise. So I'd buff the crap out of him. The other one was playing bow. So it's like longsword and bow buffed by hunting horn. It was disgusting, dude. Like even the Giga Volstrax that they made. You guys remember there was like that super powered Volstrax event that they've made? He barely moved. He barely moved. We destroyed him. It was disgusting. I was like, oh no.
I'll put my hand up and say,
crazy.
Base Rise, I played a lot of bow as well. Like I love the dual blades. I did play a lot of that, and I had a set for every element on dual blades. But that jump, what's it called? Rapid shot, rapid volley. The jump, triple shot on the bow.
I know what it is.
That move just made the bow so fun and so powerful that it was just insane. It was just insane, and it would kind of like stagger locked the monsters, especially in solo scaling, because it just outputs so much damage. Yeah, that made me love the bow, and I didn't play a lot of bow before that, like ever. Maybe a bit of bow gun, but for me, Base Rise bow was like. Also, I will put my hand up and say I will play generally what is powerful. So when the bow is like shining like that, I'm like
Meta
I'm
slave
for it.
Yeah.
But Ruri, out of all of the weapons, apart from Gun Lance, what was your favorite in Sunbreak? And I'm taking Gunlance away because that's too easy.
Out of all of the weapons, which was the one that I liked the most in Sunbreak? I don't know. That's rough because like I like some of the changes that they've done for Sword and Shield, but I feel like the Sword and Shield is like my second one, right? It's like I got Gunlance and then my second favorite Sword and Shield. I think I might have to go with Charge Blade. I think because like the air file. I don't know what the air file thing is called. I forget what it's called. The one where you jump into the air and then you just download a file.
Yeah.
Like that one is so good. It feels so good to do. Like the first time you do it, you're like, "What's this? Is awkward and unwieldy. This is kind of weird." But then the second time you do it, oh my god! You just like you start going ham. And not to mention that with the changes to elemental damage, the numbers you can output on Charge Blade is disgusting. So initially in base Rise, when people would ask me, "Hey Rurikhan, would you like to get elemental shelling?" And I was like, "No, elements suck. I don't want that." And then in Sunbreak, people were like, "Hey Rurikhan, how'd you like elemental shelling?" I'd be like, "Well, if it's done like Charge Blade, yes." I want a shell for 1,000 damage. I think that'll be fun.
Definitely. You know, Charge Blade was the weapon that I had to switch to in World to take out Alatreon solo, because the Savage Axe mode elemental damage output was so good that it outperformed my Switch Axe elemental damage, and I main Switch Axe. So I felt kind of dirty. I was like, let me just swap to Charge Blade, and then I could do it. Yeah.
It sounds like you need to get good on a Switch Axe.
I guess I do. I've got to get good at my own weapon.
So I don't know if you remember, but what do you think I did to deal with Alatreon?
Oh, this was a while ago.
Yeah.
Oh, this is in the memory vault. I think it's in there somewhere.
Come on, take a shot. Just take a shot.
I'm trying to think what was like broken at that point that you would have to do.
I mean, it was I want to say dual blades, but it could be bow. I feel like that's my two guesses. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I'm misremembering.
Oh my god! Dual blades and bow. I'd rather uninstall the game.
He hates range weapons. And it can't be longsword, right?
The bow's elemental output was so good as well. So it was one of those weapons where even if you hated it, you could try it and it would work.
Listen, here's what you need to understand. Yeah. I will never betray my baby. I played slap Gunlance with Element. And I beat the crap out of that. Like, listen, here's the thing, because they did something to the Gunlance, because each weapon had like a different threshold of elements. Yeah. To make up for the fact that certain weapons attack faster. So, for instance, if you played a greatsword, it had a bigger threshold to apply the element because it takes a long time to swing. At least that was my understanding of it. And for some reason, they really increased the one on Gunlance. So
it was hitting.
I could proc like 3 or maybe even 4 elemental things. Ooh. It was insane. Like, it was really crazy. Like, if he was down and I would just start like poking, I could trigger elemental. What did they call it? Elemental break, whatever. I forget what it was called, the mechanic. But yeah, I could trigger his elemental threshold like very, very easily with Gunlance. But the problem was
they scaled every weapon differently.
Yeah.
And that was why I felt not great on Switch Axe. I feel like maybe they didn't juice it as much as the weapons.
Yeah, because
at least from my experience.
Because you have elemental files in there, so they're like, hey, just use an elemental file.
Yes, yeah.
But the biggest problem was breaking the horns. Because like trying to break the horns with Gunlance was annoying as hell. But like if I was able to break the horns, it was like home stretch, no problem. Dude, but listen, you guys know what Chaos Slayer did?
No, what did he do?
He would cart twice and kill him with shells. He'd just be like, yep, Eschaton Judgment's coming. That's fine. It's a chance for me to trigger my Fortify. And I was like, what the
that's so cheesy. That's so funny. I love it.
But that's the reason why, you had people like, at least I had people that would come into my comment section and be like, oh, I completely mastered the fight. The fight is super easy. The problem is that really cheap mechanic, Eschaton Judgment. I'd be like, you're lying. Because if you had mastered the fight, then just die and kill him.
Yeah.
Like, there you go. Problem solved. If you mastered because that's what they would tell me. They'd be like, I've mastered every single move, but Eschaton Judgment's unfair. And I'm like, well, you're lying, because if you mastered every single move, you'd kill it, because you would actually deal more damage with raw damage than with elemental. Elemental just helped you control the fight. But the damage itself, interestingly enough, you could deal higher damage with raw damage than going like full elements with full elemental things and elemental crit, like all the elemental skills in the world, you would still deal more damage with raw. And I was like, that's stupid. That's just stupid. This is an elemental fight. How is raw still dealing more damage?
Thing. Exactly. That was the beautiful thing about the fight. You could go however, you could tackle it however you wanted if you were good enough. And that's how I feel like every kind of monster fight should be. And there have been a few particularly I'm looking at like Extreme Behemoth, and that did have different fight mechanics and stuff. But again, it wasn't like unfair. There were ways to survive it, you know?
I loved Extreme Behemoth. I thought it was so cool. I remember specifically during Extreme Behemoth, it was like I cleared it on one night, and then on the next morning I log in and you guys were doing it. I was like, oh, let me see if I can help. Then we all went together. I was running my white mage build, but you guys didn't let me. You guys were like, no, just bring damage.
Bring damage, please. That fight was so fun. Like, I just love the whole Extreme Behemoth. Like, I want more experiences like that in Monster Hunter in general. It's just an enjoyable experience. I know some people had struggled with it, but like it felt like a raid, basically. It did. An MMO raid. And I employed MMO raid tactics to the point where I had to ask a friend of mine to change his weapon because he was playing Aerial Glaive. And I was like, no, you can't do that. Because you need to see because when you were in the air, you couldn't see the tornado symbol below you to say that a tornado was coming. And my strategy was like, listen, whenever there's a tornado, you need to take it to the edge of the map. Like, get the hell out of here. I don't want to see any tornadoes in the middle of the map. So that's kind of how we did it. Whenever somebody would get a tornado, they would run away, they'd let go of the tornado, and then they'd come back. And if you're playing Aerial Glaive, you can't do that because you can't see the tornado while you're in the air. So, okay.
Yeah, definitely.
That was a lot of fun.
But Aerial Glaive was good in that fight in phase 1 to cut the tail specifically. That's what I think we ended up doing that in some of our clear runs. Was I went Aerial Dual Blade just for phase 1, just to cut his tail off, and then I'd switch.
My thing in that fight was like that white mage build I was telling you about, which was sword and shield, because you can pop items without even sheathing, and even if you do sheath, it's like giga fast, just like sheath. But I would tell people, listen, don't even try healing yourself. Don't try. Just deal damage. That's all you got to do. Just deal damage and don't even worry. And I would basically manage everybody's health, and at the same time, I would trigger mounts at specific occasions whenever we needed them. Because with the sword and shield, you could choose to either bash to go for the stun, or you could choose to slash, and that would do mounting damage. So I'd basically choose, okay, now I want to mount, and I'd go for the mount, or now I want to not mount, and I would keep doing aerial attacks without mounting and going for KOs. So I was basically just controlling the fight and healing everybody. But the first clear that I did was definitely with some people that were using like cluster bombs and all kinds of like cheesy stuff. And it was funny because like Behemoth would hit them and their health would go like whoosh, and then I'd be like healing potion, and they're like so they wouldn't even sheath the heal. They just keep firing. It's like whatever, it doesn't matter.
I think we need you as our dedicated healer in hunts now. Then that wide range healing is so nice
main.
to have.
I don't want to play like that again, dude. That was a one-time thing for Behemoth. It's not really a playstyle that I want to keep doing.
It's really nice to have on the team though. Like in any hunt, especially the harder ones. If someone does spec for wide range, and even better if they have like you say sword and shield because they can use items, or even just coming wide range with hunting horn, so you're just the ultimate buffer. Yeah. That's always nice to have, and it's an under what's the word? Not enough people use it, you know. You don't see it very
underused,
often.
yeah, and underappreciated probably. I have a friend of mine that would always do that with Charge Blade. He would just run wide range Charge Blade, and I was just like, dude, all of the skills that you have to put in, And he just like, yeah, but I want to have wide range so that I can heal people. He would run wide range, Mushroom Mancer, and he's an amazing player. Like he's super good with the Charge Blade. So he'd do like really, really well. And that was always like great fun. But yeah, it's not something that you'd see often, support Charge Blade. And he'd do amazing because he would also buff himself using Mushroom Mancer and stuff. And he was really upset that I think that the didn't they make wide range like a super big gem in Rise for some strange reason? Isn't it like a tier 2 or a tier 3 or something like that? It's something like that.
I think it may have changed in the latest like updates in Sunbreak, but I think base Rise, I think it might have been.
I remember that in base Rise, he was really upset. He's like, dude, what the hell? Look at this. Look at how you need a huge gem just to do wide range. Like, why? It reminds me of when you guys tested out, what was that thing? The one that gave you knockback immunity while in the air or whatever, I forget, Air Master, whatever the hell it was.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yes. We spent so long figuring that out. We spent so long figuring that out, and ultimately it was a community discovery. And when we discovered it, I was like, okay, this is never going in my build ever. It's terrible.
It's almost like you can have this level 3 Deco, or you can have level 1 Brace, which does the same thing and much more.
Yeah.
So why? And didn't it have like also a really high ranking in like charms and stuff? It was considered
it
like
did.
a very
it really did. It was like
it was
if you
on
got one
as
level
well.
in that, it was a rarity 8 charm, which is like the highest rarity at the time. And it also meant that you kind of hit a good roll, but the RNG gave you the worst possible skill, which made it even more painful.
It was like, hey, you rolled really good. Here's this useless skill. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
why are you doing this?
I think that's why we couldn't accept like what it was when we found out what it was, because we're like, no, it must do something else. Like, no way would they weight it like this, and it only does like knock back in the. What was it again? Was it knocked back in the air or something? I can't remember.
It was like minor knockbacks in the air, but only if you're in the air. And it's like, how does this? Wait, I think I remember the name. Was it Jump Master? I think it was Jump Master, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's Jump Master. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I can't remember. I could be misremembering as well, but I don't even think it was just while in the air. I think it was during the jump or the vault animation.
Yeah.
So it was.
It wasn't even the full air time. It was just like a small portion of it.
Terrible skill.
It's just such a weird skill. Why would they do that? So
someone spent time programming that as well. They're just like, yes, I've hit the jackpot.
That's giga weird. What platform are you guys playing on nowadays? I'm assuming PC, right? That's your main platform for Rise of Sunbreak?
So base Rise, we were on Switch.
Yeah.
And I actually love playing Rise on Switch. I love the fact that you can just play it anywhere. And I wasn't too bothered about, the lower frame rate and all that kind of stuff. You just accept it if you're on Switch,
Yeah.
But for Sunbreak, we switched over to PC. And I feel like when you do the switch is when you feel the difference. And so going back to Switch after playing on PC for Sunbreak is like, it's a bit jarring because like that frame rate difference, the graphics difference, it doesn't feel as good. And when you're like hunting, it's even more exacerbated, like in terms of how it feels. And so I actually think PC is a really good way to play Sunbreak.
Yep. See, that's what I did. I played a chunk on PC, and then I went back to Switch.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Why are you doing this to yourself?
It was mostly because like it's like I have stuff in this office that I'm in right now, right? Which is like a warehouse. This is not my home. So I have like my big gaming rig is here, and it's not in my house. And so it's like I keep going back and forth to my house, and now I have to spend more and more time in the house because kids and all that stuff, right? So I was like, look, I need to be playing this on console, and on PlayStation 5, Sunbreak's not out yet, and I don't feel like starting all the way over from the beginning again. So I was like, screw it, I'm going back to the Switch. And it doesn't bother me like the textures or the frame rate and all of that stuff. It's whatever. So I just went back to Switch and I've started grinding there, and that's probably going to be the last time because in a way I feel tempted to play the PlayStation 5 version and doing just like a full-on Charge Blade save, but every single time I think about the anomaly grind, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
It's too much.
If it had that cross progression, that would be like I would buy it on every platform if it had that, so they'd get more. I think how many people would? They surely would make a lot of money if they did that.
Yeah, they did. They definitely would. I don't know why, because like I can't believe that it would be that hard to do like a system.
I know why.
Why?
I asked someone at Capcom why it's a thing. All right, this is why it's a thing. It's because Capcom, when they make Monster Hunter World or Monster Hunter games, has the platform-specific servers host their game rather than them host their own servers, even though we connect to Capcom servers for some things in the game. So, say for PlayStation, they use PlayStation servers to host the game, and obviously PlayStation servers won't allow multiplayer and the saves to go over to like a Nintendo one, but like say other games that do cross-platform, you need to make sure that you have your own servers in place for that reason. So that's the reason that we don't get it. And hopefully for the next Monster Hunter, we get those servers, and then we have a beautiful time.
I think
change the game.
I think Exoprimal is going to be their kind of like their first foray into that, and it was working pretty fine. So I'd expect that we will get that stuff for future games. But yeah, I went back to the Switch, regrinded the Anomaly. Where are you guys at with Anomaly rank?
Enough to do the last bit of content. I can't remember the numbers. So
yeah, every time they raise it, we grind to just the point that we need to, because it's such a grind. So it's like, if you want to get those new things and show those new stuff off, it's usually decorations and stuff as well that you get, and usually those decorations are pretty good too. Yes. So it's like we'll just do what we need to, because it's just such a grind.
So you're basically at, I think, Anomaly rank 201 at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I do want to just double back though to what you said before about going back to Switch. Have you tried playing on Steam Deck? Because then you could do your PC save.
I don't have a Steam Deck.
I think you might have to consider it, because then you could play your save on the go or on your PC.
The thing is, there's not a whole lot of PC specific games that I'm super interested in. So most of the stuff that I want is usually on consoles. And there's also a lot of titles that are coming to the Switch that I'm going to be wanting to play.
Okay.
And I already have a ton of stuff on the Switch that I already want to play. And it's like, I don't want to buy another device and then have all of these other games. Not to mention that at some point, like there was this thing where the Valve servers went offline and there were a bunch of Steam Decks that were basically bricks. You couldn't do anything with them. And I was like, ooh, that doesn't sound good at all. It's like, my Switch, I can whoop it out anywhere, play it, and it works. And it's like, hey, listen, this is fine. I like this device. I don't mind that the performance is not amazing. And I already have the device. So it's like, hey, I'm good. I'm good. And there's a bunch of games coming that I'm going to want to play. So it's too many devices, you know. You get to a point where you just have too many things. So I try to keep it
completely
minimal.
agree. Completely agree. And you got the Switch there, so why not? Anecdotally and personally, from my experience, I didn't have any of those like issues that some people had with their Steam Deck.
Yeah.
But I would say keep an open mind, because the fact that you have access to your saves from any Steam game, and a lot of Steam games are compatible, and also because it runs Linux, you can actually do a lot with it.
Yeah, and I could play 14 on the go as well. Yeah,
you could play 14. You could play WoW on the go. You could do whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I like it in that regard, but it is good that, you know, it's like a way to connect your Steam saves and stuff.
Yeah. It's like I have no question that it's a good device. Everybody keeps telling me about it, but it's like it's almost like I have almost this loyalty to the Switch because I just like the product. Because I mean, let's also face it, if the Switch didn't exist, the Steam Deck wouldn't exist either.
Yeah, true.
I kind of, in a way, it kind of annoys me a little bit because there's a lot of people nowadays that just like want to take a dump on the Switch. They're just like, yeah, man, it's trash. The thing is bad. Look at that frame rate. Couldn't be me. And it's like, yo, chill. It's like,
also, when did the Switch come out? It's quite
2017.
Exactly. Like, it's not old, but it's been out a little while.
Yeah, it's
When
just
it came out, it was really, really impressive when it came out.
it was impressive, but the hardware was already kind of dated when it came out. That's the thing. That's the thing that a lot of people they're a little bit resentful for. But to me, it's more like the games are fun. That's all I. Excuse me. That's all I care about. Like I play friggin' Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak on there. And sure, when you have Gore Magala in there, the frame rate is like, ooh, welcome to Struggle City, because like the Gore Magala winds effect.
Yeah.
The Switch doesn't like that. It's like, oh man, that's a bit heavy there. That's like I think that might be the biggest frame drop that you'll see in Sunbreak is whenever there's a Magala in there. But other than that, I think the game runs just fine, and it's good, and it's whatever. It doesn't bother me. And the one thing that bothers me is that I can't stream it at 1440p on YouTube because,
Okay, yeah.
But then again, you also remind yourself that, like, well, like 60% of people are probably watching this on their phones. Is it really going to make that big of a difference? So it's whatever.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you guys are at that anomaly rank. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to bring up is, while we're still on the Monster Hunter topic, because I have a couple more things I want to pick your brain about, is Monster Hunter 6. Like, let's start with Paradise. What's like the biggest thing that you want for Monster Hunter 6?
I feel like there's a massive checklist of things
of course.
that I want, so it's hard for me to define the biggest, but I think up there for me is probably the hope of some kind of, maybe open world is the wrong word, but more like big living world, maybe with seamless load screens. So it feels like you're not going from hub to zone, and it feels more like you're just in a world and you just can walk out into like a desert, or you keep going and you end up in a forest. And it's kind of like that seamless experience where things feel living. Because like if you think of world, a lot of the areas in world did feel alive. You still had to load between the different sort of zones, but I would like that same or an elevated version of the world feeling alive, but being able to seamlessly go about it as if it's just one big thing that you're in.
What about you?
For me, it's a simple one, but I want it to be a successor to Monster Hunter World and not a successor to Rise, because if it's a Rise type game, I don't know how the community as a whole is going to react to it, because I don't feel like the community is super happy with Rise, and Sunbreak is definitely brought back some of that vitality into the Monster Hunter community, but still, I don't think everyone's super happy with it. But like, I think people are yearning for a sequel to World.
Yeah, the next World.
So I feel like it's going to get that excitement back, and it's going to be a good time if we do get one of those.
I think, so specifically, what is the thing in Rise? Like, not the community, but like you specifically, what is like one thing that you can point to in Rise that you're like, this is the one thing that that kind of like makes me want to have it be more like World than necessarily like Rise?
Oh, for me personally, it's not something that everybody's gonna gel with, but it's graphics, and graphics is a huge point for me. I've always been someone that's like likes graphics. I watch all the Unreal Engine like streams, and all of that stuff. So when it comes to like presentation, I feel like it adds to the spectacle of it all. I think some of the best moments that we had in World were people sharing their first time encounters with things that had like spectacle about them, like Safi Jiva coming in with the star, with the sapphire star like dropping, us seeing Fatalis for the first time like burning the gate down. All of that stuff like really rallied the community in a way that we hadn't like seen before, and it kind of broadened the community as well, because people were like, what the heck is going on? Wow, it looks amazing, blah 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 blah. So on paper, graphics sounds like the most like superficial thing.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. That's very superficial of you.
Yeah.
But no, but I get it. For some players, definitely graphics are one of the biggest selling points. It's not my case, but it's like I agree with what you're saying though. Like but to me, it's for a bit of a different reason. And this is interesting because I don't know if you guys seen the latest video from Herney. He posted up.
Oh no, I haven't. Yeah, no wire bugs on, right?
I think it might have been that. I don't know, but it basically the whole idea is that he wants it to go back to a simpler time, And to me, that is kind of like the key point. So for instance, if you're, let me actually ask you guys. So say for instance, between Rise, Sunbreak, not both, like separately. So base Rise or Rise with Sunbreak, World or World with Iceborne, which one is your favorite?
Base World for me.
Yeah,
I think
World,
it was that first experience.
Base World.
Exactly. That first experience, that jump from generations previously, and it was like, this is, and I think the graphics were a big part of that too. There's multiple layers to what it was, but walking into that world for the first time with those graphics and fighting monsters of that size with that immersion that the graphics brings, and also the fact that it was brought to like mainstream consoles as well. I felt like that was a big part of it too, because the amount of people that was like Monster Hunter for the first time, never heard of it, and then they try this and they're like, wow, this is actually a really fulfilling game. And then for us coming from pre-Monster Hunter games being like, wow, this is a massive step up. And some people it was too big of a step up and they didn't like it. And other people, got used to it and got into it. So I think definitely Base World. Iceborne was a very good expansion too and brought a lot to the table. But that Base World experience, because it was the first time coming to like other consoles and that big jump, definitely.
Yeah. I think as much as people say graphics are not necessarily like a massive point to them, you got to see what's happened with like Wild Hearts. People were roasting Wild Hearts for like how it looks in the presentation on that game, and essentially the Wild Hearts gameplay, aside from like some performance issues and some glaring game design issues, like it's a fun game to play. Like that is essentially an enjoyable experience that Monster Hunter players should, on paper, enjoy. But the graphics are a component of that people just didn't gel with at all. Obviously, graphics are one point of the whole thing. Like if you have bad sound is super important as well. Or if you have bad gameplay, then it's obviously going to impact it. But I feel like the first thing that you see are the visuals of a game and how it looks, and that's the thing that shares. And I think that's one of the things that builds up that excitement generally in gaming communities when you have that stuff to share. So for me, graphics are important because every time it's just exciting to see that stuff.
Sound is an interesting thing that you bring up because, like, just as a bit of an aside, recently I've been getting back into No Man's Sky, and I actually bought the physical. Cause I'm a sucker for physical media, so I bought the physical version of No Man's Sky for the Switch.
That's awesome.
And so it's like you'd figure I'm gonna boot it up, and probably frame rate's gonna run like crap, and I'm not gonna like it, and it's whatever. But I was like, I want to have it. Not to mention I like No Man's Sky, so I don't mind supporting the devs and whatnot. But so I booted up, and interestingly enough, it was not the visuals that turned me off; it was the sound. It has some lower sample rate or whatever.
Really?
And that was the thing that I was like, nope, I can't play this game on Switch. But it's not because of the graphics. It's not because of the performance. It's not even because of the loading times, because it has longer loading times than on regular consoles. But like all of that I could deal with. But the moment you hear the sounds, I was like, nope. Because the sound experience of No Man's Sky is very rich. It's a really cool game with the sounds and the soundtrack that they got going. And the moment I heard it, I was like, nope, this is not happening. But going back to the world thing, I figured like if we were to talk about this around the time that Iceborne came out, right? I feel like all of us would be like, oh man, Iceborne's so cool, Iceborne amazing, all of this. But now with the benefit of hindsight, now that we're a little bit more detached from it and we're playing Rise and Sunbreak and we look back and we're like, no, Base World was the real thing. And one of the reasons why, to me, is because Base World was also a much simpler time. You didn't have to deal with clutch claws, wall bangs, tenderizing, in my specific case, also the mechanic of friggin' Wormstake Blast, which I hope never comes back. So it's like there were a lot of mechanics specific to Iceborne, which were, they were whatever. But looking back on them, I'm like, no, I liked the simpler time where it was just about it's you, the monster. There's no crazy. And again, wall bang at the start. It was like the most. You go back to the first live stream that I did, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna slam this Bambaro into the Beatotus, and it's gonna be good times. Yeah, it's Bambaro time." But now everybody's just like, "Oh my god, wall banging." Eesh, it's kind of like I feel like it's the same thing with wyvern riding, right? Wyvern riding's fun. First couple of times you do it, I even set up like PvP matches with me and a friend. We were like doing PvP with two monsters. It was like the first iteration of Monster Hunter PvP. But then you look back on it, it's like, oh man, Wyvern riding, sure, it's fun. It's a fun thing to do like once, but yeah, as a thing that's there always, I don't think it's particularly good.
I feel like the reason behind that as well is because they don't want to add new weapons, so they keep on adding on mechanics to the existing weapons that make it feel super bloated, but they need to go back to just just give us a little spice. Give us like a chainsword, give us like a, I don't know, give us those claws, give us something.
Magnetic hammer.
Yeah, give us the magnetic hammer and all of that stuff. Like, we're ready. Especially how Wild Hearts has come out essentially and has a wide variety of weapons. I feel like that's one of the selling points for me. It was just experiencing new types of weapons that I don't really get to play in Monster Hunter, like the clutch blade or claw blade in that. Yeah, so it's fun. This is fun.
Did you try the claw blade in Wild Hearts, Rory?
I've played all of the weapons. I mean,
those claw blades were just like that was the anime weapon experience for me.
That's Attack on Titan, basically, the claw blades.
It's 3D maneuvering. That is exactly what I wanted out of an aerial weapon for the longest time in like a hunting game. I feel like they did it so well that I hope maybe that weapon gets some light in the future as well in other games.
Did you ever play Toki then?
I did. I played. I think I played 2 on.
Okay. Just 2. You didn't play 1.
I think it was 2 that I played, and I'd also remember it being really like that was probably actually one of my first hunting games. It was a long time ago, and it was very punishing if you didn't. When you were first getting into it, it was hard.
Yeah, it was a little bit hard when you first, because like there was a weapon there that I used to play. I really liked it. It was the Kusarigama. I don't know what they exactly called it in the game. It was basically Kusarigama. You had the spinning cycle thing, and then you have like a wait. No, wait. You have the cycle, and then you have like a spinning weight on the other side, right? And so with that weapon, you'd be able to like hurl it at the monster and then pull yourself, and then you could just like climb up on the monster by smacking. Wow. It was you didn't actually climb. It was more like you would hit the monster and you would bounce up a little bit, and then you would hit it again and it would bounce up a little bit again. It was a lot of fun. I do that stuff all the time, but basically Wild Hearts was actually a very surprising game for me, because this was one of those things where a lot of people were very quick to write it off because it was being published by EA, which was one of the things that I kind of like tried explaining to people. It's like, listen, there's EA and then there's EA Originals, and you look at what EA Originals has released, and a lot of the stuff in EA Originals is actually pretty good. Like you have the It Takes Two, you have the Getaway game. I forget what the name is. I always forget the name of that one. Get Out or something.
A Way Out?
A Way Out, yeah, A Way Out.
Yeah.
And those games, like, they were actually pretty good. And they had pretty much pro-consumer business models, in my opinion. So that's why I was like, hey, it's EA Originals and Koei Tecmo are the ones developing it. I'm going to give it a try. But a lot of people were like hyper negative just because it was EA. I still get comments today. It's like, man, I would love to play this game, but it's EA. It's just like, whoa.
I don't think it's just that, though. I think people want it to fail because it's simply just not Monster Hunter. And they love Monster Hunter.
There,
yeah, they love Monster Hunter, right? And Monster Hunter is like a great game, but sometimes it's like if something comes along that isn't that, you can see it in other games as well. It's like any other shooter comes out and it's not Call of Duty. The Call of Duty people are gonna go crazy. Any other like fighting game comes out, people are like, oh, why are you copying this game or whatever? It happens across the board. But for Wild Hearts, they made mistakes as well, so I can understand like why people were like that. They're not absolved of their issues that they had.
The game, I feel like that game could have definitely benefited from a couple of more months.
Yeah,
I was talking with Gaijin about it, and he feels that they potentially felt that they needed to release ahead of Capcom revealing the next Monster Hunter title, and they didn't exactly knew when that was going to happen. I suspect next Monster Hunter title is going to get announced at like Summer Game Fest or something like that. But I bet they felt some pressure there, and they were like, okay, this is the window that we have to release. We have to release it now. And there were some serious problems. Like, I don't know if you guys experienced the slow motion bug, because I'm assuming you played on PC, right?
Yeah.
We experienced it all.
On PC, you also got that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
everything.
God.
I think the most jarring for me was the sound that would just you do like one hunt and then the sound would go, and the only way to fix it was to restart.
I've heard about
one
that
hunt
one
again and the sound would go.
Oh God. I wasn't even aware of like all the things that were happening on PC, because to me, I just thought, oh, I want to play it on PlayStation, because like I told you guys, I'm in the office. It's like to be able to play this at home be a nightmare. So I can just take the PS5 and then I hook it up there. So I just wanted to be able to move it around. So I was like, I'll play PlayStation. And then it was like, oh, the game runs at 1080p. And I was like, wait, what? 1080p? Like, look, I'm not a big graphics guy, but 1080p on PlayStation 5? That's kind of weird. And then on top of it, I experienced the slow motion. But to me, it was even worse. Like, I don't know how soon you guys experienced it, but in my case, I experienced the slow motion problem 60 hours into the game.
Really? I was experiencing that like on day one, basically.
No, you played on console. That's why, because console didn't have as much issues as PC. We had a lot of problems, and also it's kind of hard to know if these are things that will go into like the day one patch and be fixed. If that makes sense when you're playing these kind of games. So sometimes it's hard to quantify: is this how the game will be for everyone, or is this, as a content creator, you usually get code like a little bit early. So is this a version specific thing to the build? But it turned out it was in the full game. They did fix it eventually, but I think it was too late.
It was way too late. It was that seems to be the problem whenever these games come out and they just take way too long to fix it. Because I kind of feel like it was the same thing with you guys remember the New World launch? I think you guys also covered that. And they promised like, oh, we'll fix a way that you guys can transfer servers and do all of these things, and we're going to put new servers and you'll be able to transfer the new server. And then it took 3 weeks to do it. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, your game launched with a problem. You need to fix it like now, not 3 weeks from now. And I feel like it was about the same that it took them to solve the slow motion. So I had to play several hunts in slow motion. Apparently not as many as you guys had to play in slow motion. But even the ones that I was, because like on top of it, I was playing Bladed Wagasa. Like, imagine trying to parry stuff in slow motion. It's like, what are you talking about? This is insane. And people are like,
painful.
Well, it should be easier. And it's like, no, it's not. Because the worst part is like, listen, if you slow it down by 50% and it's always 50% slower, that's one thing. I can adapt to that. The problem is that it would be like 60% slower, then 30% slower, then 80% slower. It's like, no, I can't parry like that. That's impossible. Are you crazy?
That is funny.
But like technical issues aside, which was a big problem.
Yeah,
it was really, the gameplay was really fun. Like killing the monsters was great. There was unique. I mean, coming from like playing lots of Monster Hunter, there was totally unique monsters. I'll call out again like the chickens. I really enjoyed fighting the like
the Dreadclaw
and the Ripclaw. Like even though they weren't difficult fights, it was just cool fighting something totally different and unique. And then the Karakuri system, which I think, at least personally, when I first saw it, I was like, this looks a bit jank. It doesn't look like quite right. I don't really like the idea of building in my hunting games. But then you play it, and it feels really good.
Yep. It gels,
and then it gels with your weapons. And different weapons have different combos to do with the Karakuri. And then you kind of take away the whole like items and you replace it with fusion Karakuri to do your traps and stuff. And I did quite like that as well. So overall, I thought the gameplay in Wild Hearts was really good. I just wish they packaged it at launch a bit better. And I think everyone would have been raving about the game if it had a bit better graphics, if it had no technical issues. It would have been like, wow, they've made something insane. But most people, you've only got like 1 week before a lot of people will just drop off of it, right?
Yeah. Keeping up with the Karakuri thing, though, I do have a bit of a criticism that I have to say, because this was something that started really frustrating me when it was the tougher kimono. Because the Karakuri system, it kind of gels when you're allowed to make mistakes, right? You're like, you start, say for instance, you need to build a wall real quick, and for whatever reason, instead of it starting to build straight in front of you, it'll build like a triangle or something. You're just like, no, what are you doing? Stop! Because you're just like, you're panic pressing it to get the thing out. And so the situations where Karakuri doesn't work, it becomes a serious problem. And in my case, I don't know which weapons you guys were maining, but I'm maining the Maul by the end. when I got to the end game, because like I started getting too frustrated with the Bladed Wagasa because of the slow ups. Because whenever there's any type of performance hiccup, you might as well just throw the Bladed Wagasa away. It's a worthless weapon. Because like the moment you're not parrying, you're screwed. Especially on like the final boss. Like I killed Golden Tempest with the Bladed Wagasa, and I was like, that was a super sweaty, sweaty fight, right? And then I heard from like Tuner from Jinjings and Tuna, and he said he had killed like the lurid Soul Stalker, which is like the deeply volatile version of the Death Stalker. And he said it was like the hardest thing he had ever done in any video game. And I was like, I think I'm going to go play them all. I think I'll just play them all. So I started playing them all. And I don't know if you guys played much of them all or not, but like the thing about them all, the thing about them all in Karakuri is that there's the stake Karakuri, and that gives them all a special attack. The problem with it is that goddamn thing doesn't work like at least 30 to 40% of the time. It just doesn't work. And the worst part is that it doesn't work in strange random ways. So like sometimes it'll grab you onto the monster. Sometimes it will count as a regular jump and you do like the regular jumping attack.
I just want to say I think that applies to every weapon with the stake, because I definitely feel that on Claw Blade. So like exactly what you're saying there. Sometimes you would get your jump attack, sometimes you would just jump. Sometimes you would just grab onto the monster when you staked in as well.
And sometimes the stake will go like below the monster and your character will be like stuck below the monster. and that was like the most frustrating thing. And it's when the Karakuri doesn't work. And then when you have a system like the deeply volatile kimono, which is like, hey, you make one mistake and these monsters are going to punish you like hardcore. You can't make, like, if you make one mistake, you better be ready to be drinking like 5 potions, because you're going to be getting punished nonstop, and you have to drink those potions because otherwise you're just going to die. So when you have a system that is that punishing, to me, it's like, well, I demand that your Karakuri doesn't fail. It can't fail because I can't fail, and therefore the Karakuri can't fail. So it's like early on in the game, I was really vibing with the Karakuri, and then if you go watch my later streams where I'm fighting deeply volatile kimono, I'm just like, goddamn stupid thing didn't work. God. I'm just like pissed off all the time and really mad and just like getting upset at the game and whatnot.
When you fought those deeply volatiles, was that relatively close to launch or like before the update started dropping for it?
It was. Let me see. I started fighting the deeply volatile shortly before the Laharbek was released, because I was like, okay, let's get ready because the content is coming, so I need to start. Because at the same time, what happened to me was, and I don't know how much coverage you guys. I don't think you guys played a lot of Wo Long, but
no.
Between me finishing Wild Hearts and the first DLC drop, I played the entirety of Wo Long.
Okay.
So it's like, it's like I have these 2 games to play. I got to play Wo Long as well because I want to play that. So, that was the thing. So, and then eventually when I finished Wo Long, it was about close to Laharbek coming online. And I was like, okay, so it looks like they fixed the slow-mo problem, so I can jump back in, start doing these deeply volatiles. And that's when I started working on them. And it was very frustrating because they just hit way too hard. You guys do the deeply volatiles?
Yeah, we've done all of them. Even the new, the new one, the latest new monster wasn't deeply volatile.
It wasn't deeply volatile.
We've done every single thing, and the lava back was. To be fair, that deeply volatile. Is it
lava
lava
back? Laharbek. That one was easy, to be honest.
That was probably the hard. You thought it was easy? I thought that was the hardest monster in the game.
30 minutes is what it took me to hone in on him and beat him.
What?
I mean,
you can watch the stream. It's true.
What?
You know what it might be? It might be the weapon damage type, because we're using like slashing, and he does have like he's not. I don't know what it was.
He might be vulnerable to blunt. I don't know if he is or not.
Oh yeah, he definitely is. Like.
But the thing for me was what I had to do to beat the lurid Soul Stalker just kind of like shaped the way that I fight every next deeply volatile that they put up, which is extremely defensive. Because what happened to me with the lurid Soul Stalker is like, hey, listen, this is just a crazy wolf on crack cocaine inside a kill box. That's what this is. This is a cocaine wolf inside a kill box that has an attack that spins around AoEs and one-shots. And I was like, oh, okay. well, what's going to happen if I basically fully equip the highest water resistance possible? And that's what I did. I equipped highest resistance possible with the lantern karakuri on top of it to shield me even further. And then it was like, oh, I'm not getting one shot anymore. Now it's just a matter of, practice and beating him. And that was it. Basically, I made it so that I couldn't get one shot. So when I went to fight the Laharback, I was decked out in fire resistance gear. I ate fire resistance food. I had the lantern down 100% of the time. And that was it. And then it was just like a matter of like, okay, so he's got these 2 new moves. Whatever. Doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I feel like we had an interestingly opposite experience with those 2 monsters because the deeply volatile, was it the Grimstalker, the Lurid?
Deathstalker.
Lurid one?
Lurid
Deathstalker,
Soulstalker.
that's it. I mean, it took us like, we did fail it maybe twice, but then we just beat it. Like, we kind of have a very aggressive play style, so put some
But
traps
there's
down,
2
you
of
just
you.
DPS to the max. There are 2 of us, but
yeah, it was just one of me.
But here's the thing:
they scale, yes,
Yeah.
they scale.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, when he has 2 targets, that's a very different.
Yeah.
Because like when 2/6 is
definitely.
getting targeted, you can deal damage and vice versa. Whereas with me, it's like when I'm getting targeted, I'm getting my face beat. It's like,
I'm getting targeted 100% of the time. Paradise has got a free reign to this.
I love it, dude. I love it.
I actually tried. I was so mad. I tried cheesing it. I went on my stream. I was like, "You guys see what I'll do? I'm gonna make a bow, and I'm gonna go on top of these stairs, and I'm gonna shoot this stupid wall." I was so mad. But yeah, it's like again, the thing that bothers me is just how punishing they were. I felt like they were too punishing for the level of precision that you can get with the karakuri. For instance, the deeply volatile, what's it called, Grim Quill or whatever, the gold shard version of it.
Yeah.
That one, I literally killed it when the stake karakuri worked 3 times in a row. That's all it took.
Okay.
It worked 3 times in a row, and I was like, there, I win. That's it. Because like you start getting knockdowns, he starts taking a lot of damage, and it's like with the mall, openings generate more openings because you're just like, okay, now here's the boom, 1,000 damage, and boom again and again. And, it just gets to a point where you just do so much damage that he's done. But the previous attempts, it was like I'd use the stake, and it was like, oh, now you're grabbing onto the monster, or now you do a regular jumping attack, or now the stake just doesn't work for reasons, and you're just like, bro, I was so pissed off. But yeah.
Well, that's what makes you really appreciate Monster Hunter. Things just like work in that game essentially, and you can see where the benefit of that polish, as you were saying earlier, would come in. Right? If they had the extra months of polish, I don't think those things would exist in the game. But for some reason, you could just feel that the game was rushed out prematurely, essentially in Wild Hearts, and they needed to come out like swinging as well if you're going to take on like Monster Hunter. So it's kind of weird that they would make that choice.
And that was the thing for me. I was thinking to myself, like, it really sucks that they released the game in the state that it did, because at the end of the day, it's a really good game.
Yeah.
It's a really good game. If it didn't have these technical issues, I felt like it was a solid entry in this genre. Again, like, you take away all the performance issues, all of the issues that you have, even with the end game, because a lot of people don't like the deeply volatile kimono end game. It's whatever. Even like that, so long as it didn't have the problems that it did, it would have been well received, and it would have been like guaranteed that we're getting like a Wild Hearts 2. The way that it launched, the way that it was received, I'm not sure if it's guaranteed that we're getting a Wild Hearts 2, and that sucks.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was
100%.
Yeah.
We do not know if we're getting a Wild Hearts 2, and it could have been. It could be something amazing if it does come out, but we'll never know.
Hey,
Definitely.
Jesus, you're already saying we're not going to get. We'll never know. This is never coming.
We'll never know. I
I'm
feel
not
like
sure.
the
You
numbers
feel
are
like
just
it's
not
done?
there. Yeah, I don't think like the numbers are there. Usually the YouTube views reflect how much purchases there were for the game, and I don't know if they would have broken even, because like the week after, a lot, like the fall off was like basically massive. Once people figured out like the technical issues, it was like massive. So I don't know, but EA's being risky with their money nowadays, so maybe in a couple of years, sometimes you need to take that L and invest in it. So maybe.
It's like
That was the whole.
Go for it.
I was just saying that was the whole theme of our impressions for when we put that video out. Was basically the game is really rough around the edges, but if this can do well, the second one's going to be really good.
Yeah.
But can people stake their money on that? You know, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, again, it's one of those weird things that like everybody thinks that, oh, we'll just release the game and then we'll fix it later, and it's like not in the current environment. Like you could do that when you had like maybe a couple of games coming out, but I feel like just in 2023 alone, there's been so many good games that have come out that you can't just like come out with a game and have that attitude of like, oh, we'll just fix it later. I don't think that is going to continue to be acceptable. I think what they've done is unacceptable to release the game in that state. But, you know, looking at the gameplay objectively, I still think that the gameplay was really good. It's like, it's not exactly an Anthem situation, but it reminds me a lot of Anthem, because Anthem, from a gameplay standpoint, I loved it. I thought it was amazing. But they messed up the content, and also they had no idea what they were doing with their game. But
I completely agree there, and it's a shame because, like you say, the gameplay was really fun. It was like flying around in those mechs was really cool.
It was awesome, dude. It's like I still think about those days, and I was like, bro, I remember I had like the big Colossus Titan, and with the mortar shells that exploded and detonated everything. Yep. It's like, that was amazing. And no, it's like, okay, fine, whatever. So, Paradise, you said that you were playing mostly Claw Blades in Wild Hearts.
Yeah,
is that your favorite weapon?
As soon as I unlocked it, because you know it was one of those.
Yeah,
it was a weird
locked.
system where you unlock those 3 other weapons midway. As soon as I unlocked it and tried it, at first I was like, I don't understand what I'm doing. I'm like tethered to monsters, aerial moves. Like, am I meant to hit on the floor? What am I meant to do? But as soon as you figured it out and you realized what your rotation was and that finishing hit on the aerial, and also like I do love Attack on Titan, so like they got me there. That was just like, I don't really want to play anything else because of how fun it is. But before unlocking it, I was actually on bow and really enjoyed bow.
Of course you were. You said it earlier yourself. I tend to gravitate towards powerful weapons. Yeah, the machine gun bow doesn't surprise me one bit. How about you, 2-6?
Loved it.
No, I was on the same weapon because we were like, oh, we need to clear this game quickly. There's so many like games coming out. We need to get through this content quickly. We're going to pick whatever weapon is going to be like, have the highest like DPS and jump on it. And I already had played the game from like a previous like behind closed doors seeing it like show, and I was like,
I remember that. I was very offended because like they invited everyone except me. I was like, what the hell, dude? I remember I even had like a podcast episode that I did with Eric specifically talking about it, and like one of the product guys on Twitter liked it. And he liked the tweet when I promoted, and I was like, "Oh, I'm probably in then, right?" No, no, you're not. I was like, "Whoa, dude, snubbed."
The choices that they make when they like invite influencers to certain things is definitely weird to me, because there's definitely influencers that should be invited to certain things, like you with Wild Hearts, and they're just like not included. Because if you think about Monster Hunter, like right now, there's a lot of smaller influencers that should be invited to that stuff, yes. And I don't know all of them, so I'm not going to name off every single small influencers. There's some amazing ones out there. But for like the big ones, it's like, there's not that many of us. So, and you're one of them, like you should be there. Like,
but it's like it's whatever, because at the end of the day it is whatever. It was, to me, it was just surprising because, again, like I made the thing with Eric's, and then the guy from Wild Hearts liked it, and then it's like, oh, everybody got to play but me, huh? But so both of you played that. So I played Bladed Wagasa. I think Bladed Wagasa might actually be the weapon that I had the most fun with, but near the end, the parry timings get way too demanding. Like, I'm too old. Like, listen, I'm 40 years old. Like, this is too much. You're asking too much of my old man reflexes. So I just went with the maul, and the maul is so brutally satisfying. It's just like, bonk, bonk, bonk. That final juicy hit just feels friggin' fantastic.
I love the extended handle as well.
Yes.
Like,
the way that it extends and just like gets all bendy and stuff, it's really, really good.
How do you feel it compares to the gun lance though?
And come on, Gunlance is Gunlance. There just wasn't a Gunlance in that game. There was nothing I could have done. But the weapon system that they did was pretty cool, though, with like the different nodes and stuff. Like, you should have seen my hammer. My hammer goes like, my maul, whatever, goes like this, and then this, and then this, and then this. And this. It's like you're playing Snake on your phone to get to the final node that I'm at right now.
It's like the Final Fantasy X sphere grid. Like, you got to make sure you go down the right path, otherwise you'll miss out. But what I will say on that is I actually kind of wish they did armor in that way as well, because there's certain armor pieces that are quite underwhelming, or they have like mismatching skills, like one kimono, one human path skill, and the same armor piece, which you can never have both at the same time and stuff like that. So I kind of wish that you had that same customizability of the weapon on your armor set.
Armor, yeah. That could have been good. So,
and you would have farmed more for it as well. Like, if you had to, because for the weapons you have to farm so many different things.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing that actually kept me from making more than one weapon. Because I was like, yeah, I'd love. As a matter of fact, I wanted to make 3 hammers because the hammer can have the 3 damage types. You can have blunt, slashing, and piercing on the hammer.
Wait, you can have slashing damage?
Yes.
That's crazy. What?
you can there are a couple of hammers that, because it's almost like, guys, remember how when you made the Valhazak hammer and it looked like an axe and everybody was like, man, this should do slashing damage. It's almost like developers looked at that and is like, this should do slashing damage. In our game, it will. So some of the, even though it's weird because my hammer right now is just a massive spike, but it still deals blunt damage. But then there's another hammer that's a spike that deals piercing damage. So I don't know. Okay. But there's a couple of hammers that deal like different damage types, which is pretty cool. I thought that was interesting. I actually thought that could have been a system for other weapons as well, but I guess not. I think the other weapons are pretty static.
Yeah, I haven't looked through every single permutation of the claw blade in the tree. I know we snaked it along, but I would have to look again and see if there's like a different type. Because if there is,
I don't think there was
one, that'd be cool.
I don't think there was. Yeah, but Diablo 4. You guys have been playing Diablo 4 recently as well. I've noticed that. So, what are your thoughts? Like, actually, let me tell you guys how I went into it to give you an idea. So, I've been covering a lot of Blizzard games to the point where I even had like a secondary channel that I was working on last year, where I'd be ranting about Blizzard monetization and all of these things and whatnot. But like I was saying at the start, since Dragonflight, I started looking at it a little bit differently because, like I said, Dragonflight was a good World of Warcraft expansion. Those are very rare. And I was like, hey, maybe they will get Diablo 4. But I went into the Diablo 4 beta thinking, this is probably not going to, I don't think that this is going to be for me, even though I'm a massive Diablo 2 fan. Like, I like Diablo 2 way more than Diablo 3. But, I went into it, and to me, it was like, this is going to confirm that I'm not interested in this game. And the exact opposite happened. I love the beta. I thought it was amazing. Was that the same? Go for it.
I'll give you a little recap. Like, so I did play Diablo 3, base Diablo 3, and that was a bit of a rocky experience.
Yeah.
And then I did go back at Reaper of Souls and did finish Reaper of Souls when that came out, and that was a bit of a better experience. But I didn't play 2 or 1, so 3 is like my baseline experience for Diablo. But I am someone that, like, when I'm into a game, like, I'll really look into it. And so I already know that 2 is the majority of people's favorites. And 2 had a lot of special things about it as well, even down to like the PvP and how brutal that was, and you lose your whole like gear set and all that kind of stuff. So
no, you didn't really lose your whole gear set. That was an exploit that we used to do back in
oh, was it?
Yeah, you want to know how it worked? So here's how it worked. So back in the day, you'd exit town, and like if you had you could toggle hostility with other players, and then you would exit town, and whenever you died, your stuff would be left in your corpse. So when you go outside, you'd be naked, and then you'd touch your corpse and you'd get all of your gear back. Nobody could loot your corpse or do anything to it. So what we do, and this is something that me and a friend would do, and this was me like in my bad boy days, okay? Listen, I was bad, all right? So here's what we do. Most players of Diablo 2 back around the Lord of the Destruction days, there were these things that you put in your inventory which were charms, which were passive. So they would just give you a bonus passively, so players would fill their inventories with charms. So there would never be any room in people's inventory when they were doing PvP, because it was just filled to the brim with charms that would give you passive effects. And so the problem with that was whenever you drop your corpse, you need to pick it back up. So what we do is, say we're fighting a little bit further away from town, and so somebody would come in, we'd kill them, and then we'd start running back to town, and along the way, we would drop like spears, lances.
Little trail.
Like we'd drop a couple of weapons along the way. And then what would happen is you click to move in Diablo 2, right? So you'd be clicking on the ground while you're going towards your corpse. You'd click on one of those items. If you happen to click on one of the items we'd drop, your character would automatically equip it. So then you'd get to your, specifically when you pick up something big like a spear, it's a two-handed weapon, so it's already taken up 2 slots of your equipment. It's taken up both of your hands. So then you click your corpse, and it will loot everything that it can, but not everything because your inventory's full, and you have something already equipped in your hand. And then we'd kill that person and they would explode like a loot piñata because the corpse was already in the ground. So there was nowhere for the items to go. It was boof. So the two items that he wouldn't loot, the 2 items that he wouldn't loot. So in the case of like, if it was the weapon or whatever, those would be in the corpse, but the rest of it would explode. Blizzard eventually solved this by just making you have like a bunch of different corpses. So like if you die, it would generate another corpse and then you could go. But in the interim, we'd be doing these crazy exploits and getting people to just... There was this one time that was so
griefing.
bad. Yeah, it was straight up griefing. Like, a friend of mine was playing a sorceress, and the sorceress straight up had like this aura that you would put on that would drop a lightning. And the damage of that lightning would be between 1 and 100,000 or something like that. It was ridiculous. That was the thing about lightning. Lightning was supposed to be... super RNG with the damage that it did. But usually most players, like, you get hit once or twice by that and you're done. If you're naked, if you don't have armor, right? So we explode one of these dudes like a piñata, but both of us also had our inventory full. So we're picking through this dude's corpse trying to pick up and the dude's like running from town is like, please, no. And then he would come close and the lightning would trigger and he would die. And then he would come back up, please. And we're just like, I'll take this one and you take that. It was so evil, dude. It was the worst. I feel like so bad.
That's the original Rust experience. Like if you ever play Rust, that is what it's like. So you were grieving people back in the day.
It was, yeah, dude. It's like, that was the I would never do that nowadays, but like back in the day, yeah, I was a nasty bastard, dude. I did that. But yeah,
that's cool though. I didn't know that was how people did it. I just knew I'd seen some clips. I've looked, forum posts, people talking about it and sharing their tale of woe about how they lost like
that guy was talking about me.
Hundreds of hours. That is funny. But yeah, to double back, so 3 was my only real Diablo experience, and 2.6. I think you played various ones, but or did you not play them at all? You didn't really have a lot.
I played them like a little bit because Alex obviously like loved Diablo and stuff like that. But for me, it's a bit of a weird one because I grew up in a Christian household, so when it comes to stuff like that thematically about like demons and stuff like that, like psychologically in my head it's a weird one to pick up that game. So I've always avoided Diablo, even though all the other Blizzard games I love. So this is my first proper one, like delving into and actually playing an extended period of time and like really having fun with it. And I played it and I'm like, yo, this is all right, this is what I've been missing out on. But when you're younger and your parents are throwing out your Pokemon cards, calling them like demon cards and stuff like that, you're like, sorry. It's like, yeah, it's a weird one. So for me, even going into it, I warned Paradise. I was like, Paradise, could you take the lead on these videos? Because when it comes to these videos, psychologically, I'm like, not really there and really about trying to play Diablo. But I've got into it and I've really enjoyed it. I think that kind of really talks to what the game is and how like fun the actual game is.
Yeah, I think that the beta really put their best foot forward because for starters, for the amount of content that they put on that beta, it was wild. Like I remember I played 15 hours on my Barbarian and I was like, I haven't had to repeat content for 15 hours and I still haven't done everything. That's crazy. Like what the hell?
we definitely
Yeah.
played a different game then, because we were just in dungeons the whole time, just pressing
Yeah,
restart.
That was the biggest problem with the beta was the dungeons and how samey they were. So like you say
Yeah.
that there was a lot of stuff to do and a big area of that map to explore, even though that was only like 20% of it, I think they said. And then you had like the world boss on top of that, and so there was a lot of content to do. But a lot of the dungeons were quite samey in their tile
Yes.
sets and how they visually looked and just how they played as well, which I think will change in the later game because each zone has unique mobs and stuff like that. So the dungeons will be a different experience, different mobs, different damage types. I'm hoping there's different events and types of like elites and stuff as well, because that's what will keep the game feeling fresh as you go through. But we played an awful lot. We basically covered every class to 25, got them like a pretty good build going. And we did really enjoy it. We kind of went in not knowing what to expect, kind of like you. We weren't sure if it was going to be a repeat of like 3's launch, or if we knew that they were trying to gear it more towards Diablo 2. But again, like neither of us really played 2, so we didn't know what to expect going in, and we ended up quite enjoying it.
Yeah.
I think that specifically one of the things that surprised me was the way that they were doing the story. Like I felt like the story bits were very, very good. Whereas because to give you an idea, like I think that the story of Diablo 3 is trash. It's complete trash as far as I'm concerned. And not only it's trash, but it almost, in a way, it felt like some of the people who worked on Diablo 3 didn't even bother playing Diablo 2 because of the way in which they told the story. It just felt like hodgepodge. It just didn't feel right for the Diablo universe. And some people will be like, oh, I love the story of 1, didn't like 2 as much. Me, I liked 1, I liked 2. But the story of 3 just really is like, whatever. The experience of 3, though, after Reaper of Souls and Loot 2.0, I thought was pretty good. But, you know, at that point, it was still whatever. But with 4, I feel like the story that they're trying to tell is much more in line with what you would expect of a Diablo game. And I felt like the work that they did with the cinematics and whatnot was actually looking really good.
Yeah, I want more of those CGI cutscenes. I think that's the real thing that drew me into Diablo 4, is seeing that cutscene of like Lilith at the beginning and the one with Inarius, is he called? And Lilith. I want more of that. That's why I want to play the game. That's why I want to finish the game. I want to know what's going on, why they're having this like strange affair between heaven and hell, why they have like little kids, why they built this world called Sanctuary. I want to know all about it. I'm like, when it comes to lore and stuff, that's my jam. Like, I want to know that stuff.
Yeah. And I think that Diablo 4 is actually going to be, from what I've seen so far, the way in which they're telling the story, they're also referencing stuff that is kind of like explained in previous Diablo games. So I'm not sure that you're going to need to play previous Diablo games to really get the story of 4. It seems like they're going to be referencing a lot of the events that took place previously in the story, which, in my opinion, is a good thing.
So what's happened in the previous like stories? Could you give me a quick 2-sentence or 3-sentence like wrap up?
I can give you a very quick summary of 1 and 2. 3, the story was so bad I tried forgetting it, so it's probably not going to be as good, and it doesn't make that much sense anyway. But the idea is, in Diablo 1, you are a warrior that goes into this town, which is called Tristram, and there's some weird stuff that is happening there, and there's like a cult or something, and everything is taking place in this one cathedral. Because Diablo 1, there's one town, one cathedral, you start going down the cathedral, and everything is procedurally generated, and that thing. So there can be things that happen, like there's the chance of you meeting the butcher. There's also a chance that you play through the whole game and you don't see the butcher. So yeah. So when you see the butcher, he's like in a room and he's like, oh, fresh meat. And he supposedly is the one who butchered a bunch of people that went down there to try and save. Because there's like a king or something that goes in there, like some type of royalty, and they do some kind of weird ritual. But basically, the whole thing is at the bottom of the cathedral, there's Diablo. Diablo's at the very bottom of the cathedral, and that's what's causing all of the corruption, all of the bad things that are happening around Tristram, is because Diablo's at the bottom. So you make your way to the bottom of the cathedral, and you kill Diablo. And when you kill Diablo, there's a problem, because Diablo has this thing which is a soul stone. And the soul stone basically needs to be contained, because it's almost like the One Ring. It calls out to people, and, you know. So basically, your character at the end of Diablo goes like, well, he needs to be contained, and he jams the stone in his forehead. And your character is basically trying to contain the power of Diablo, and that's how Diablo 1 ends. And then in Diablo 2, there's a character that shows up who is the Wanderer. And the Wanderer is basically a representation of your character in Diablo 1. So he's the one who has like the stone in his head, and he's trying to figure out how to better contain Diablo. But along the way, he makes a bunch of mistakes, and you end up unleashing the other primevals, Mephisto, and a bunch of others. I don't remember the names of all of them, but like Mephisto is a big one. And so, and at the end of it, the stone takes over, and your character from the first game becomes Diablo, and then you kill Diablo again. That's kind of the end of it.
So my question to you, Rurikhan, is Diablo 4 ending going to be Diablo's resurrected? Can you kill him again?
I don't know. I mean, Diablo's been in every game except Diablo Immortal. Because like I actually played.
Does it count? Does it count though?
I played the entire. I mean, I don't know if he's there now, but like on release, Diablo was not on Diablo Immortal because I played the entirety of the game, and I hate every moment of it. I think that game is complete trash.
I'm
with or
surprised
without
you
the
played
micro.
it. I'm surprised you managed to play through the whole thing.
Because the thing to me is, it's like if I'm going to be talking about something to a certain extent where I want to be criticizing it, I need to be knowledgeable of why it's not good, so that if at that time, like nowadays, I don't even remember all of the reasons that I had for not liking it because it's been a long time since I played that. But at the time, you know, I didn't just want it to be something that's like, oh yeah, Diablo Immortal is trash. And someone would ask me, well, why? I'd be like, it's just bad. No, it's like at that time, if you were to ask me, why is it bad? I'd be like, it's bad because this gem system sucks. It's bad because you need to upgrade this gem on top of it. Like I could list you 20 different reasons why the game was bad, and not all of them involved monetization. So that's why I basically forced myself to play through it, and it was not an enjoyable experience. I didn't like it. It was complete trash. I spent like 40 hours playing that thing too.
Wow.
But
respect for getting through it.
Yeah, dude. But with the whole thing, you know, then in Diablo 3, there's some stuff that happens. But basically, Diablo 3 gets reincarnated in, I want to say Deckard Cain's daughter, which Deckard Cain's like a super big character. He's the stay a while and listen. That's Deckard Cain. But in Diablo 3, for shock value, they kill him off.
What?
Yeah, they just kill him off. It's not even a cutscene. It's just like somebody shows up to his house and blows him up and leaves. And you're just like, what?
So that sounds so funny.
Yeah, dude. It's like, so at the time, I was like, when I first see Deckard Cain explode, I was like, it's like one of the most iconic characters in the franchise.
Yeah.
Just blew him up and left. And then his daughter gets corrupted and becomes Diablo, and it's like it's a weird thing. But yeah, that's kind of the way that it goes. And now they're talking about Lilith. Lilith isn't really brought up in the other games. I mean, she's probably brought up in like little lore bits or maybe some armor piece description or something like that. But they usually don't talk that much about Lilith. Inarius, I don't remember if they talk about him, but they definitely talk about a bunch of the angels, and Diablo 3 specifically talks a lot about how the angels aren't perfect and they make mistakes as well. So the whole thing is the angels aren't perfect. The demons aren't entirely like, they're not, at least in Diablo 4, it seems like they're going like the demons aren't all super evil or something like that.
Gray area.
Yeah.
It's like they're not all aligned as well. They, even down to the angels, they have their own ideologies and that clash with the other angels, and I think it's the same with the demons.
Yeah,
and I think even, correct me if I'm wrong as well, I think Lilith is even more detached from the other demons as well.
Yeah, I think so. Again, I don't know all of the lore because, like, usually I play those more for gameplay. So, which is why, like, my summary, I'm probably going to have a lot of people like, "That's not how it happens, Rurikhan. There's this other thing." It's like broad strokes, folks. Broad strokes. Relax. but yeah, there's definitely going to be some interesting stuff there with the way that it looks like they're telling the story. I think it's going to be good. I particularly like the whole thing about where they drug your character, drag him off in the cart. Yeah. Like, I thought that scene was genius. I was like, that's awesome. And then you immediately think, and my character's a dumbass, because immediately after he goes into the house of some other random stranger who gives him food and he eats it. It's like, he doesn't even stop to like Like, smell the cup, something, do something. It's like, nah, it's all good. I'm hungry.
YOLO.
Which class did you enjoy most? Or how many did you play?
I play all of them. I played all of them, and I actually did a ranking video yesterday. The one that I enjoyed most was the Necromancer, but there's a big set of nostalgia there because Necromancer was the first class that I played when I played Diablo 2. So then, I always like the idea of a minion master. Where you're just like, I have all of these dudes with me to kill everything. And then it also happened that the Necromancer just happened to be the most overpowered character in the beta, as far as I'm concerned.
That does help.
Yeah, no.
He was freaking busted.
So how different is it to do Diablo 2, like Necromancer? Because I played it, but I kind of want to know, like, could you have that many minions in Diablo 2? Like,
in Diablo 2, at the start, you could actually have even more minions. You could have I think you could have, in the beginning, you could have 20 skeleton warriors and 20 skeletal mages. The problem was, if you were to go that deep into it, they'd be giga brittle. So like one regular mob would go up to them, like slap them, they'd break. As a matter of fact, I wasn't even, when I first played it, because I was a complete noob, my Necro was terrible. It was so bad because I wanted to have minions, but I didn't put my points right. And so basically at the end of the day, when I was in Nightmare, my Necro was running around with a pike, killing people in melee. It was so bad.
That's not how you play it.
Because like the pike was the weapon that I had picked up that dealt the most damage, and I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to poke people to death. And my skeleton, I had to be constantly resummoning my skeletons because they die. The only thing that I had going was that, I'm not even sure if this was a bug at the time or not, but you'd have this blood golem, and blood golem leached life. So the more damage blood golem dealt, the more life it would leech. But then you'd have this curse, which is the same one that we have in the beta, which is Iron Maiden. And that curse would make it so that monsters would deal damage back to themselves. But if they were hitting the blood golem, it would count as the blood golem dealing damage, and you would get health. So I would just send the blood golem out, Iron Maiden, monsters would kill themselves, and my health would always be full. That was my strategy. But but I think it was viable. But the way that we had it was, instead of using the traditional summons, we had these other things called revives, where you would actually just summon dead enemies, and they would come back with the amount of health that they had, like adjusted. So if you're a Nightmare, they'd have tons of health. They'd be giga tanks. So you'd put a bunch of points into that, and then I would just summon like an army of dead things. It wasn't even skeletons. It was just like the other monsters, but they were dead, and they would tank everything for me. Like if you would go into the cow level, you would literally just like raise more cows to help you. So you'd have an army of cows with halberds killing everything.
That's what I like to see.
Do you think the cows will return in 4? I see so many comments of people.
I think it's inevitable. I think they have to do a cow level. There's no way they don't. In 3, they did the rainbow level, which I think that some people didn't really like. I thought it was interesting seeing like these pink rainbows getting chopped up into gory bits. It's pretty wild. But I think it's inevitable that the cow level will probably return. I don't see how they could not do it, because they're paying homage to a lot of things. I also expect us to get a Herodric cube, because that's always been a thing. But yeah, so I like the Necro, but I also like the Barbarian. And one of the things that I would point out is I had more fun playing the Barbarian specifically because the Barbarian was weaker. Barbarian was the weakest class first beta. And the reason I liked it is because it made the game more challenging. Like when I played Sorceress or Rogue, the game was a cakewalk. I just like murdered everything in seconds. With a Barbarian, you would actually have to like, I got to think about this, got to strategize, got to move here, got to use this ability, got to do this thing. And with Sorc and Rogue, it was like, everything's dead, or throw a bunch of knives, everything's dead. And, but it seems like Blizzard wants the game to be a cakewalk even in World Tier 2, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but sure, I guess.
Yeah, that's the same experience I had with the Necromancer and the Barbarian, because those are the 2 classes that I leveled up. I definitely found the Necromancer was easier to play, and like you could get through more content, but I actually found it more boring overall than the Barbarian in a way. I don't necessarily agree with the Barbarian being weak, because I've seen some builds. I've seen a build of the Barbarian hitting like 300k on a single hit with the upheaval build. So I definitely feel when it comes to endgame, the barbarian's going to be clapping, but I don't have enough experience on Diablo to like
Yeah.
definitively talk about that. You probably know more than me, but even the Thorns build on the barbarian, when I was walking around with that, I felt like an absolute god.
I didn't like the Thorns build at all. I must be the only one because like I made the Thorns build like I think it was on Sunday I made the Thorns build.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, it's just not for me. I got the Legos and stuff to go with it, but I don't like the idea of passively waiting for monsters to hit me. And on top of it, when I did the Thorns build, I was like, I guess I'll put Whirlwind because I'll be on top of the monsters whirlwinding and they'll be attacking me. And I instantly broke the build because I had a legendary that would pull monsters towards me when I was whirlwinding, and that would interrupt their attacks, instantly breaking the Thorns build. I don't like this.
Oh no. Yeah.
I think that there definitely is a reoccurring theme across the betas for the melee classes, so the barbarian and the druid being or feeling weaker in the level experience. I don't really know personally if they were weaker or not, but because you had to close the distance to hit the melee hit, because you were in melee and now they're hitting you back and you're taking a lot of damage, so you're having to potion and then back off if it gets dangerous, it slows it down. So it does feel, it definitely was slower to clear content than on like the sorcerer, for example, that I also played. But when you got to like that level 20, 25 point, you got a few legendaries, you put a build together that, you know, synergized, and then all of a sudden my druid, for example, was clearing things probably easier and with less button clicks than even my sorcerer was.
The thing to consider there is that for the beta, you have 300% chance to get legendaries. So it's like
that's the comments that I see is like these classes are very legendary dependent, and you're not going to get all of that. You're not going to have a whole legendary set at level 25 in the full game. But I also think you're going to be in other zones at that point, because we were stuck in that one zone for that whole period of time.
Yeah.
And I feel like the natural leveling of Diablo by that point, you know, a lot of people also probably just do the main story and just keep going. So you'll probably be in other zones at that point as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it is. But they have said that they do plan to do buffs to certain classes.
Yeah.
And the Barbarian was on that list.
It's one of those things that I'm not overly concerned at this point what it's looking like in endgame. I'm just like, I'm analyzing based on what I see. And the biggest problem that I had with the Druid, I mean, for starters, it was by far the weakest class. Like, there's no question in my mind that the Druid's the weak, because any of the other classes, I could put a build together with whatever, without having legendaries, with whatever skills I kind of like felt like I wanted to use. And the build kind of worked. Some worked better, some worked worse. The Druid, no. There are a ton of builds that is just like, this is terrible. I can't kill anything. And if you get to a boss, you're definitely not going to kill that. You're struggling the whole time to even just get to the boss. It was terrible. Until I found like one build that worked. And then I was like, okay, now I can actually play it. No, Lightning Storm was kind of okay. But the build that I ended up using was the Lightning Generator, which I forget the name. I think it was Storm Strike. Storm Strike and Pulverize.
Best one by far. Pulverize is also really strong.
Yeah, so it'd be like Storm Strike, Pulverize, Storm Strike, Pulverize, and I'd be doing that and then just pump a bunch of defensive skills, because Druids also, at least to me, it felt squishy as hell. So that was kind of like the way that I played it. And eventually I filled them up with legendaries that made that build work really well. Like I made them powerful enough. All it took is fill them up with Legos. Like every single item slot was a legendary, including one that was a huge survival legendary that was like plus 7.6 health regeneration for every enemy that's close to you, up to like plus 38. So that made him regen a lot, so that whenever you were surrounded in dangerous situations, you would just like constantly regen and not die. But yeah, the Druid was really... But again, the biggest problem for me was not even the power. It was that a lot of the Druid abilities just didn't feel fun. Like, for instance, whereas with the Barbarian, I said, oh, this feels like the weakest class, but it's fun. It feels fun to play. Pushing buttons is fun. On the Druid, that was not the case. Pushing buttons on a lot of the skills that you have available to you did not feel fun. And that was the problem that I had, which is, to me, it's like they need to go over the Druid and figure out, hey, maybe we need to change this animation. Maybe this needs to happen faster. It's not even about just damage numbers. It's about the Druid itself just doesn't feel good, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I felt that way particularly about the the shape-shifting form abilities
Yeah.
and just how they handle shape-shifting in general. Even when I think of like if you went on the werewolf basic and core skill, which was like shred and the basic, I can't remember the name of the basic one.
Claw.
Like you say, they didn't feel fun to do. They felt like you were doing the same move, but they weren't the same move, and
it feels
there
like an
wasn't,
auto
impact
attack
to it. Exactly, yeah, and that was a real letdown for me. So like even when I used to play like Dungeons and Dragons, for example, I played a druid was my favorite class. And I was playing a moon druid, which is a shapeshifting focused druid. So going into Diablo 4, I was like, I want to play druid. I want to do shapeshifting. This is my thing, and it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. And I even knew going in beforehand that it wasn't going to be permanent forms, but I didn't expect it to be like one-hit abilities that didn't feel impactful and didn't really do very much. And even when you made a full shapeshift form with all the synergizing legendaries, which was powerful in that you could clear content, it did, like you say, it didn't feel fun.
It didn't feel fun, yeah.
Yeah. I kind of wish there was like a button that you pressed that turned you into a werewolf and gave you a whole list of werewolf skills that were fun. Another button that you press that turns you into a bear that gives you a whole list of bear skills. Maybe it's timed or or something like that. I don't know. But I kind of wish that it was forms that you turned into that had their own thing, you know?
I'm pretty sure that that's the way that it worked back in the day in Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction, because Druid only came on the expansion to Diablo 2. And here's an interesting thing. Druid was also extremely weak when it came out in Lord of Destruction. This is like a recurring theme. Like trying to play Elemental Druid at the release of Lord of Destruction, good luck. It sucked bad. So you could do shape-shifting Druid, and that worked. Like the wolf version actually was pretty good. It did a lot of damage, but that I think was like the only thing where Druids were worth a damn was if they were playing wolf. Again, feel free to correct me, everybody that plays D2, but this is what I remember from back in the day, but whatever. But yeah, the Druid didn't feel particularly fun. And to me, I find it interesting, though, that I actually like more the idea of shape-shifting for an ability than shape-shifting out. That, to me, is actually more interesting than constantly being a bear or constantly being a druid, a wolf. But I see where you're coming from. So yeah, they're gonna have to jiggle. They're gonna have to do something with the druid because it just doesn't feel fun. How about you, 2-6? Which class do you like most?
Definitely the barbarian. By far. It was just a fun time to just go around, as you're saying, like mash buttons and just be in the thick of it. Really, I like when the events popped up in dungeons and you had like 1,000 mobs around you and you're just whirlwinding. And if you had a legendary that sent out tornadoes, it was just like it was like I felt like I was living the power fantasy, even though I was on a weaker class essentially, which I didn't really get while I was playing a necromancer that was super strong, which is weird. But yeah.
It's a funny thing that you're talking about Whirlwind Barb, because like back in the day, you know how we played Whirlwind Barb in D2? So you'd get one ring that would give you 5% life steal. Then you'd get another ring that would give you 5% mana steal. Then you equip both of those rings, and then you'd hit the Whirlwind button and never let go.
That's it. That's all I want to do. I just want to spin to win. I just want to be a Beyblade. That's it.
That's how we used to play Barbarian back in the day. You just whirlwind, like you'd start the level, and the moment there's mobs on the way, you just start whirlwinding, and you only stop when there's no more mobs. That's it. Just like, it was so good, dude. No, wait, you'd shout. Every now and then you'd shout for additional damage. That was about it.
I love the shouts as well. Like, I know it's just a quite trivial thing that happens in any other game, and you have like warriors in every game that do the shouts, but in this one, when you see the taunt come up on everybody, and because it's isometric and you see all the mobs get taunted and come towards you, you're like, wow, I'm the boss, I control this arena right now, you're in here with me. And it's like, it's super fun. I love it.
It's the whole thing about the barbarian shouting does feel very good to the whole class, like raw. Super powerful. And they've actually added effects to like impact and stuff. So if there's like barrels around you or something, when you shout, the barrels will break from the shockwave of your booming voice. It's like, it's really, really cool. Yeah, I dig that a lot as well. So I can completely understand where you're coming from. But yeah, for me, I think I'm going to be playing Necro when the actual game comes out. I expect the Necro to be heavily nerfed because like I had the stupidly overpowered legendary that Necro's got. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, which was the Blood Mist one. Dude,
yeah,
that was so... The first time I saw it, I was like, what? AoE corpse explosion? And here's the interesting thing, right? In this game, corpse explosion is like a fixed damage. In Diablo 2, corpse explosion was a percentage of damage of the health of the mobs you killed.
Ah, okay. So you
So
can
it'd be
never
like
actually kill one person.
60% of the mob's health in damage. It's like the mob you killed explodes for 60% of his health and damage.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
like clear levels
That's
with
cool.
that thing.
That's cool.
Because, like, for instance, just two corpse explosions would be enough to kill anything in the radius of the
okay.
corpse explosion, because it's 60% plus 60% is 120% of the health
Yeah.
of the mob. Most mobs have around the same health, so you'd kill everything.
That is busted.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like it did 60% of the thing that it was hitting, not 60% of the thing that the corpse of what you were exploding.
Yes.
That's insane. That's insane.
Like I think you could corpse explode. I don't remember if you could corpse explode bosses, but yeah, if you could, it'd be like
Wow.
the health of the boss. Boom.
Yeah.
But it's
That's
of course
crazy.
it has a limited range. So yeah, but the thing is, so you'd corpse explode something, and then something dies, then you corpse explode that, and then something else dies, and you corpse. So it triggers a chain reaction, and then you'd also have like curses that would amplify the damage, so monsters would take a percentage more damage. So it'd be like amplified damage, corpse explosion, everything would die.
Yeah. I think that's the interesting thing about Diablo as a whole, and especially someone coming in as like a new player. On the outside, and I've seen a lot of other people say this as well, on the outside it looks super boring. Like Diablo 4 looks boring aesthetically, but the thing that really clicks for me, at least, is just like I didn't understand why people play Diablo, because it obviously looks boring. But the thing that clicked for me was the fact that you've got that kind of, you make your builds and you try out these little funky things, you get legendaries, you build around it, and that whole experience of like creating unique playstyles is just like the most enjoyable thing to me. Like building around Tornado, putting add-ons on it from like that causes the tornado to do like more damage or going a particular direction or home in. That's the stuff that really jams with me.
And that's one of the problems that I think you're going to have with Diablo 4 is that they don't want people respecing all the time. They specifically mentioned this in an interview where they said that eventually respecking is going to become prohibitively costly in terms of gold. And that to me is just like, I understand that back in the day in Diablo 2 we didn't have that. So say for instance, right, you're playing Diablo 2, you'd get like they weren't called legendaries, they were called uniques back then, which I think that uniques are making a comeback in Diablo 4 as well, but these would be items that would almost be like build defining. So say I'm playing my sorceress and I get like a build defining item for my barbarian, and I'll be like, okay, I'm leveling up a barbarian next. But in here you have smart loot, so usually you're getting legendaries that you can use and stuff for your class. And what they expect is like, say you're playing firewall sorceress and you get like a really good frozen orb legendary, they're like, okay, time to level up a new sorceress. And it's just like,
No, please.
not
Don't
now.
do that.
No, listen, it's too late for that, my guy.
Yeah.
Listen, this is 2023, okay? Gaming is a little bit like, there are certain things that modern gaming does wrong, but like putting up barriers for respecking, I think is a terrible idea in this video game. I think it's not.
Yeah.
It's not going to benefit anyone. Like for instance, with my barbarian, because I was struggling with that boss, the Den Mother, I specifically respec just to kill that boss with bleed damage. I was like, I'm just going to get 2 bleed skills and I'm going to run around the arena and I'm going to bleed you out. And it was cool because it's like, hey, I came up with a strategy to defeat this monster. I used it, and this build is worthless for anything else. So it's like, I just wanted to use it to kill this boss and I want to swap back. And you can do it because right now the costs are actually not that bad. But what I saw was the way that they started escalating. So like in the previous beta, you started like, I don't know at which level exactly the costs come in, because at the beginning you don't even pay anything to respec. But eventually it's like, whenever it comes in, it starts at like 10 gold. And then it's like 100 gold to respec your whole tree. And you're like, it's whatever, 100 gold, whatever. And then it got to a point where I think it was close to 5,000 gold at level 25. And I was looking at my gold and I'm like, so I've managed to accrue 20,000 gold up until this point, and respecking is going to cost me 1/4 of that. Now for the open beta, they lowered it down, I think, to like half, because it was like 2,000 something to fully respec at level 25. But yeah, I don't like that in their development philosophy is like, hey, eventually you're not going to be able to respec, because right now we're not even respecing Paragon tables. We're just talking about our regular skill tree. Eventually you're going to get a Paragon table, which is going to increase the complexity by quite a lot. And if you're not going to be able to respec that at your will, and you're going to get like a super powerful, not even a legendary, but a unique, which is going to be even more rare. If you're going to get like a super powerful build defining unique, and you're going to be like, well, I'm going to go level up another class. Not to mention, I don't know if you'll be able to transfer uniques between different characters.
True.
Yeah, because there is character-bound things already in the beta.
There were?
Down to some things were dropping that were bound. Some you could trade, some were bound.
I didn't notice that. I remember hearing like in an interview somewhere that there were going to be things that were not going to be tradable. So it's like, imagine if you get a unique for your character, for like a build-defining unique, super powerful, and then you can't trade it, and you have to spend all of your gold to be able to respec to make use of that unique. You're going to be like, oh. So I don't know. They have some decisions to make when it comes to that, I believe.
I think they've got to let you respec. Like, make it have a cost, but not an insane cost. I think that was what was so fun about the beta, was that you could try all of anything you wanted out, because the gold cost was so low. Just let players do that. It's more fun. It'll keep people playing longer, because you'll play 100 hours with one build, then you'll be like, oh, I want to respec and try something new. Then you might try that, and it doesn't work out, and you'll go to something else. And I think that just increases playtime. And just to go back to what you said about uniques, I can't verify it in game myself because I didn't see it, but someone did send me a screenshot after they beat the Butcher, and they did get his unique in the beta. So, which I didn't think there was any in the beta, but I did see that screenshot of it, and it looked legitimate to me.
What was the item? Was it the Butcher's Cleaver?
It was the Butcher's Cleaver, unique axe.
That's what I would
lucky
expect.
hit. When you critically strike an enemy, you have up to 100% chance to fear and slow them by 75% for 4 seconds.
Nice. Fear and slow, so that
although
doesn't run away too far.
Exactly, yeah. Like, it's thematic to the Butcher, right? I don't think... Maybe you could do a build around like hitting things with bonus damage to slowed enemies or stuff, but it's not that powerful. The thing is,
it doesn't feel very powerful for a unique item, which I think that unique items are going to be much more powerful than that, but who knows? Could be authentic, could not be, but I also thought that there weren't any uniques in the beta, but...
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I think it's going to be fun. My biggest concern with it is I feel like their business model is, oof.
Like the season pass and all of that kind of stuff.
I mean, for starters, even though the game is $70, where I live, the game is $80 on console. Not $80, €80 on consoles. Which is just like 80 euros. That's the standard version. Then it's 99 for the deluxe version, which, by the way, comes with 4 days of early access.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's how they get you.
I hate that practice, dude. The early access thing triggers me so bad. I hate it. I hate when they do that. It's like it's a thing where if you were to pre-order the normal version and you'd get the early access, that I can kind of stomach. I'm like, okay, at least it's the normal. But it's like, no, we're charging you $20 to get to that early access. It also comes with like the first season pass and whatnot. But it's like you got all of these different tiers that are super expensive. Then you have a season pass with accelerated season pass if you get the very ultimate edition. It's just like, bro, there's so much monetization and it's wild.
Yeah,
they love it.
I think they announced that they wouldn't have like buy power in it.
Yeah.
That can be interpreted in different ways though.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see exactly what that means.
You know what they said about Diablo Immortal?
What was it?
They said we're not selling gear and we're not selling experience.
But they sold everything else, right? Because it's like the end game.
No,
was like crazy.
The thing was their interpretation of gear did not include gems. Like build-defining gems were not considered. No, they're not gear; they're gems. And we don't sell experience, which is a flat-out lie because you could buy season pass tiers, and some season pass tiers would include experience.
That's nuts. That's nuts.
So it's just like crazy. A flat-out lie.
That's nuts.
So that's why when you see people that are very hesitant about Diablo 4, it's because we've been burned pretty friggin' bad with Diablo Immortal. Like, it was really bad for the community the way that they handled that situation.
Did you see the video around the time that Diablo Immortal came out, and someone who had spent $50,000 on their character had become so powerful in the game that they could no longer matchmake with anybody?
It wasn't 50,000. It was over 100,000.
Was it? Oh, jeez.
Yikes.
Yeah. Imagine being so powerful and spending that amount of money, which is an insane amount, to not be able to play the game.
You know what this is? This was me playing. No, this was me playing the world's smallest violin for that person. It's like, what? You spent $100,000 now you can't play the game? I don't care. You have $100,000 to burn on this game, you have a pretty good life. Okay? I think you're doing pretty good for yourself. I don't care that you can't play the video game. But, yeah. That's the Diablo 4 situation. We'll see how that pans out. So far, what's your favorite game in 2023? So far, of all the things that have come out so far.
Oh, I need some reminders because there's been so many games that have come out this year.
Yeah, dude. It's wild.
What games have come out? Because I know there's been some absolute bangers.
Hogwarts Legacy.
I haven't even played everything. I've played like some of them. I was just wondering if there was one that instantly would jump to mind.
I think for me, Hogwarts Legacy is the one that comes to mind.
Wow.
I grew up. The game itself was very good. The actual gameplay and the way that they had done the game, and the sound design and the characters, the graphics, the voice acting, it sort of ticked all those boxes, if that makes sense. I do think if you don't have nostalgia to like the movies or the books, it's probably not gonna be as impressive because you're going into a universe that doesn't fully explain itself to you. You're just kind of put into the magical school of Hogwarts. You don't have that background knowledge of, I know what this room is, I know who these characters are. I still think it will be a good experience for a new player, but you won't have that nostalgia, and the nostalgia always boosts it, you know?
I've never really been into Harry Potter, so I was like, I had to watch all of the movies because my wife is into Harry Potter, so I was basically forced to watch it. But other than that, yeah, Harry Potter is really not my thing, so I didn't really care that much about it.
I'm mixing up this year with like last year, but I guess Wild Hearts is probably my favorite game that I've played this year so far. Yeah, because it's there, but there's like some really... Wait, did Pokemon come out? No, Pokemon came out at the end of like last year as well. So no, it's definitely
Sorry, I just wanted to say there's some really good games still to come. So it's
that's the thing. You got to me, it's like the two biggest bangers that are to come is like we got Zelda and Final Fantasy 16. I think this Final Fantasy is going to be the best Final Fantasy ever.
Yeah. We're on the same page there. It looks so good. I can't wait. I'm such a big fan.
Well, I've played it, so I know it's good.
Oh, you've already gotten to play Final Fantasy 16?
Yeah. So I went down to like an event.
Damn, I'm jelly.
In like London. It was super fun. Like the combat in it's crazy. Like it's like as close to like a action game as you would want it to be. It doesn't feel like a Final Fantasy game in that aspect, but it's a weird amalgamation where you go into a cutscene and you're like, wow, this grand story, the voice acting is so great, and then you come out and it's like this action game. It's a completely different experience than what you were expecting. So if you do like an action game, you'll definitely like this one.
Well, listen, if you like story...
Yeah,
no, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it.
No.
Have you heard of the free trial? Includes the critically acclaimed.
No.
Heaven's expansion.
No.
Oh man, it's like, to me, it's been a very interesting thing because I actually started playing Fire Emblem Engage, and I got really into it. I haven't gotten around to finishing because it's very complex, and my chat convinced me to play Hard Classic, which yeah, when your dudes
They tried
die,
that with me. They tried that with me when I was playing it as well.
they convinced. I already had a character die. I had a character die, and it was like, well, I'm out of rewinds, and I've been on top of it. She died after 4 hours of me doing a map. Okay, I was in that map for 4 hours because I'm a complete noob, and on top of it, she died. And she was probably going to be like the MVP because she was doing so well. And then I made one mistake. And that was it. And there's no more rewinds. There's nothing. I was like, no, not like this. But yeah, the Fire Emblem Engage, I really loved it, which I didn't really play Fire Emblem games that much for. I think I played a little bit of Three Houses. Yeah.
You didn't play Three Houses? Okay.
I played a little bit of it. But I never really got into it that much because it had a lot of the social things. This one has, and when I think about social things, I just kept going back to like, well, I haven't finished Persona 5. So if I'm going to play a game like that, I should play Persona 5 first and then play this. And then I never played either. I mean, I played like 50 hours of Persona 5 when that came out, but I never finished it. But yeah, Fire Emblem Engage has less of the social things. It's more about the gameplay. So I think that's what made me enjoy it more. But yeah,
I love that you like Engage because it definitely caters more to fans of the series. Like it's the iconic characters that are being brought back from like games.
Yeah. Way
earlier in the series. So the fact that you can go in without being too big on it and still enjoy it, I think it's really cool. Because I saw a lot of people commenting, you know, I'm not that interested. I don't really know who these characters are, and they're like a big focus point. But for me, like I played since Awakening, so I was quite enjoying it.
I thought the same thing. I thought that like when I first saw the reveal of it, I was like, I don't really care. But then when it came out, I remember that there wasn't really anything that I wanted to play. So I just reached out to Nintendo and I was like, hey, you guys got an extra code or something you can shoot me? And they shot me a code and I started playing and I was like, oh, this is actually really, really fun. So yeah, I just kept playing it. But yeah, I don't think it's my favorite though. I think it's really good. I really enjoyed it. I think my favorite's probably Wild Hearts. Between Wild Hearts and Wo Long, I also really liked Wo Long. You guys didn't play Wo Long much then, I take it.
Yeah, it was just that we had to have a break in the week that it really like came off. I played a demo and I enjoyed the demo, but to delve into it now that like other games are out is a bit of an undertaking. So it's just come out at an unfortunate time, basically.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was talking about when they announced the release date. I was like, wait, you have Wild Hearts so incredibly close to the release of Wo Long. You're developing both games. Koei Tecmo's, I mean, one of them is like, Wo Long is like Team Ninja, whatever, but it's being published by Koei Tecmo. Koei Tecmo should be aware that like, these are two Japanese games that most people that like Japanese games are going to enjoy. Maybe give them a little bit more breathing room, but you know, it happened the way that it did. I think that Wo Long was really fun as well. I liked it a lot. But yeah, those are like the three big standouts for me up until this point, but there's still so much stuff.
You know what? There was one more big game that dropped this year that we haven't talked about.
What?
Which is Forspoken.
I had so much hopes for that.
Forgot to talk about Forspoken.
I thought that game was going to be sick, and then they just flopped.
The thing was, I was talking about games that were like the ones that we liked the most. I didn't particularly find Forspoken super. The thing was, I didn't think it was as bad as people made it out to be, because like people were chomping at the bit to hate on it. Like my live stream, the live stream that I made for it was actually, it was not good because people were just mad all the time, and they're like, "Oh, how can you play this games?" They'd be like, the visuals look terrible. And I'm like, are we looking at the same game? Like, I feel like sometimes people jump to criticize things that aren't necessarily fair to criticize. Like, you want to criticize the writing? Sure, fine. Yeah. Is it juvenile? Sure, whatever. But I mean, I don't think you need to pop off and be like, oh, the graphics look terrible. I think the graphics looked okay.
I think in general, just like the gaming community as at large is just wanting nearly every game to fail in some weird way. Like, I don't think there's been a single game that's come out recently that there hasn't been some type of controversy behind. That's been also, some of it's been legit and like, okay, cool, I can see why things are up in arms, but some things like are just completely just overblown in a way. I think Forspoken deserved it. Because that game was a bit ropey. what else? Obviously, Diablo deserves it if it's like got some strange like monetization.
Yeah.
There's been other things, but I feel like every game's got like some type of issue that people are like, don't buy this game, it's going to be rubbish type thing on. And I remember when I was younger, the internet wasn't as prevalent. I just used to go in there, and even if a game was like mid, as they would say, or like just a mediocre game, I would enjoy that. Some of my favorite games from my childhood are what people regard as like 5 out of 10s or whatever. So it's weird seeing now that a game can't even just be average and enjoyable without people jumping down its throat, basically.
Actually, you know what other game came out that was very surprising and really cool in a good way?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hi-Fi Rush. That game was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They just dropped out of nowhere as well.
Yeah, out of nowhere, it's like, hey, here's Hi-Fi Rush. Like, oh, I actually had to plug in like a headset directly to my TV because there's latency between my usual setup, and it's just little bit of latency that never bothers me made Hi-Fi Rush unplayable.
Well, because the music and the synchronization.
The synchronization, yeah. I was like, dude,
okay.
when I first started playing it, I was like, man, I suck at this game. This game's terrible. Then I was like, okay, let me try something. I put up the phones directly to TV, and I was like, oh, now it's working. Like, it's really down to the milliseconds when it comes to that stuff. But, yeah.
There's some really cool other games as well. So, like Starfield.
Well, Starfield...
2023.
I don't know if that's going to be good or not.
I don't know about that.
Well, from the gameplay, it's weird, right? Because actually, in the gameplay where you see them shooting, it looks a bit ropey. But then when you see like the space combat, or you see the base building mechanics, or the modular spaceship stuff, that looks really cool. So it will be interesting to see how that one goes. And then there's Star Wars Jedi Survivor as well. Did you play Fallen Order?
Oh, hells yeah, I love that. I streamed the whole thing. Love that. I thought it was really cool. I was very pleasantly surprised because there are so few good Star Wars things that we get nowadays.
Very true, very true.
We get so many bad Star Wars things.
And it looks like they're just expanding on the good stuff from Fallen Order as well, which I think could make Survivor something pretty special. But I'm always like cautiously optimistic for new games because I think that's why people get up in arms, like we were talking about, because people have been burnt like time and time again. And there is like a very prevalent like don't pre-order games thing, which I think for a lot of people is probably quite good because
it's a good thing. Yeah,
they can only buy one game a year or two games a year, and if you buy a game that flops, that hurts a lot.
And the thing is that's one of the things for me, which is I feel like a lot of people will want to play a game like the second it comes out, and I keep thinking to myself, if I wasn't making content, I wouldn't have that attitude. I'm like, I can play it next week. You know, exactly, servers are broken. That's fine. I'll play it next. Hell, I won't even buy it now. I'll buy it when the servers are fixed. Like, for instance, Wild Hearts. If I was somebody that was looking in from the outside, I'd be like, I'll wait until they report that they fixed all of these performance issues, and then I'll get it. And maybe there'll even be a discount by then. You know, that's kind of like the attitude that I would bring to it personally. Instead of just always being like, no, I gotta play it now. I gotta play it the second it comes out. Listen, that's a content creator thing. We have to do that because it gives us, an edge in the algorithm. It's just the way that it goes. But for a regular user, I don't think people need to build themselves up to all of that thing. I do understand, like for MMOs and stuff, it's a different thing because the starting experience is kind of like a race and whatnot, but for most of the other games that are like maybe more single player oriented, you don't have to play it day one. You can wait for a review, take your time. And I think that there's actually a community growing, particularly on Steam, where they just the patient gamers, where they just wait. Oh, it's gonna listen, it's gonna be discounted at some point. It's gonna have all the DLC built in, and that's the proper time to jump into it. You know?
Yeah, and generally you'll get a better experience that way as well, because like we were talking about before with day one patches fixing things and then updates coming later, you'll just get a better experience.
Yeah.
And if you get it on discount, you get it cheaper.
Yeah. But one more thing that I wanted to ask you guys about, because I think I saw a picture that you guys posted on Twitter. You guys got a PSVR 2 as well, didn't you? From Sony?
Yes. So I have the unit myself, so 26. hasn't tried it yet.
Oh, you haven't even tried it, 2.6?
No.
You're not interested in VR?
No, I'm interested in VR. I think we played VR on stream like ages ago, and I've really liked games like Pavlov and like a couple of the other games where you can kind of. There's something visceral, really, about going around and like actually physically like loading things and picking things up and throwing things and playing that stuff. It was like really fun to play. But yeah, PSVR, the games, there's not enough of them that intrigue me at the moment. The Horizon one looks good, but what else is there?
Yeah, I think the Moss
games,
one.
there wasn't that many.
I think the Moss one is probably one of the biggest selling points. You play the Moss game?
Is that the one with the
I
rat?
have that.
The rat,
it's
yes.
the rat one.
Yeah.
I have it.
so
I haven't
good.
actually tried it yet.
I haven't played the whole way because like what I did, I didn't exactly know what to do in terms of like a review thing because for starters, I wasn't even expecting to get one because I'm not like a massive creator, but I do have a good relationship with Sony in Portugal, and they were like, "Hey, we want to send you one of these," and I was like,
Wow.
damn, okay. Because like it's an expensive piece of kit, right? You're just like, Jesus Christ. Okay, sure. So I filled out a form, NDA, all of that stuff. And then they sent me the unit, and they also said, do you authorize us to contact other people that might have stuff to send you? So they sent me the thing, and I had like over 10 games or something that also came with it. And I was like, Jesus Christ. So what I did was basically I did a stream where I gave each game like a certain amount of time so that I could check everything out and give everybody my impressions on it. And there were actually some pretty cool titles in there. Like the Star Wars one I thought was pretty good. Because, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So just being able to be like on a Star Wars ship and whatnot, that was cool. The kayak one I didn't really vibe with all that much. There was like this kayak VR thing.
Yeah.
But I guess it could be a use case for someone that can't physically do those activities, right? Someone that, maybe they have like some kind of a problem and they can't go into bodies of water or something. It could be cool for someone to experience that. But besides that, I don't really see a big thing. But I think Moss is a huge selling point because like that game is just a ton of fun, in my opinion. I played a bit of the first one. I never really finished it, but I played a decent chunk. And then I played the second one that came with the PSVR. So there's that. There's the Star Wars game. And there was, there was the Call of the Mountain as well. The thing from that you were talking about from Horizon. The Horizon one was actually one that didn't really grab me nearly as much, to be honest.
You know why I think... Tell me if this was the same, because I played a decent chunk of that as well. I think the climbing mechanic was cool, but there
it's
was
overused.
So
Yeah.
much of it.
It's overused.
Exactly. The actual bow combat and fighting
Yeah.
was really cool. Picking up the components when you down them, but the fact that you had to like climb for 20 minutes in between each section was just painful. And also, if you don't have a lot, like I'm sure
a lot of room, yeah.
your studio, you have good room. I don't have a lot of room here, so I
No,
was
actually,
like trying to climb.
I played it like here.
Oh, there you go. You had the same experience. The climbing was awful in that kind of space, right?
And listen, the worst part, I played it like that, and I had the microphone in front of me because I was streaming it. It was. It was.
But like, I actually think they had some really good mechanics in there. It's just there was just too much climbing.
I think the problem is the distance. So like, if you were climbing and you were going unrealistic distances. Like, say you climb this bit, but in reality it goes like whoosh, just like pushes you a little bit more, in a controlled way so that you don't like end up hurling or something. But the problem was, like, for instance, just to go around a corner, so you'd be climbing and you'd need to go around the corner, it'd be like,
yes, yeah.
And it's like, bro, this is a bit much. Like, I'm friggin' going like this. You're going like this for like half it's a workout. But I don't know. It definitely felt like they did too much of that. But you guys want to know the biggest selling point for me of PSVR now that I've gotten to test it? Because I don't know if it was shortly after PSVR came out, but No Man's Sky announced its next update, and it supports PSVR 2.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that is like, that's like the biggest thing. I feel like the problem is I don't think they got the ship controls quite right, because you're actually like, you're holding the VR controllers like this on the throttle, like this on the joystick, and you're actually flying this ship just with motion controls, and that doesn't feel super solid just yet. I feel like they haven't gotten that. But the immersion of just because, you know, when you go into something like a Call of the Mountain, it is very limiting. Like, it's a very guided experience. You're going to go on this path. There's almost no freedom to it. You go to the Star Wars thing. It's the same thing. Here's this path. There's going to be some enemies pop up. You shoot them, whatever, blah, blah, blah. In No Man's Sky, there's no rails. There's no rails. It's just like, hey, you're in a planet. You get on your spaceship. You go to another planet. And that was the thing that is really, really cool. Although they added these Exocraft things, which are like no, not the mech. There's the vehicles.
Oh, okay.
So I got in one of the vehicles. And it was a very mountainous terrain.
Oh,
and it was just like, and I was like, oh no. This was a mistake. So yeah, there are things that are better left outside of the VR world, and using Exocrafts is one of those things. But yeah.
So you play a lot of you play a lot of No Man's Sky. Have you tried like Star Citizen, or is that a dirty word to you?
I haven't played that. I mean, actually, I have played a decent. I've played a decent chunk of No Man's Sky. Yes. Back in the day, but like right now I'm kind of like starting a new save to kind of get reintroduced because they've added so much to the game. You kind of got to start over to really get everything. But the Star Citizen thing, look, I just think Star Citizen is a scam.
Yeah, but you need to try it though. Even if you think it's a scam, you need to try it. I think it's a tech demo, and it's not necessarily going to be finished anytime soon, and they're prolonging in development.
Here's a comparable thing. Here's a comparable thing that I did play. Elite Dangerous.
It's not. I don't think it is.
Dude, I love Elite Dangerous. I'm addicted to Elite Dangerous.
One of these days, right? Let's do a little stream on your channel, yeah? Me and Paradise will show you around Star Citizen for like an hour or two.
We'll get ships out. We'll take you to a planet.
If my computer can even run the damn thing, am I going to be funding Chris Roberts' next yacht? How much does it cost for like the most basic package you can get of that game? I want to give this man the least amount of money.
Some weekends
you can play it for free.
Yeah, on some weekends you can play it for free.
If you want the most basic ship, it's like $20 or $30 or something like that.
$20.
Yeah. Yeah,
am I going to contribute $20 to Chris Roberts' pension fund? I'm not sure.
I think everyone needs to experience it once at least, especially if you're into Star Wars and like space games. Like, it's just an experience in itself, even if it's not finished.
Like, look, I even because here's the thing: the reason I started playing Elite Dangerous is because it came to the PS4, and I always wanted to play Elite Dangerous, but I wanted to be able to play it outside of the PC. I wanted to be able to play it. Because again, like I have my PC in a separate location, and when I'm home, I don't have my PC. It's very frustrating, right? So that's one of the reasons why I gravitate so much to console stuff. And when they came out on PS4, I was like, okay, this is the thing. I even got a donation while I was playing the game because I was streaming it. And a regular viewer just basically said, here's $100, go buy the HOTAS. So there was a HOTAS that's compatible with the PlayStation 4, and I bought that. And that was just like, it's a completely different experience. Like, do you guys play with HOTAS or do you play with mouse and keyboard or gamepad?
Mouse and keyboard, yeah.
Dude, HOTAS is the way to go. Dude.
I definitely need to get like the dual HOTAS, like full setup with the pedals and everything.
See, that's actually one of the reasons why I never got as much into No Man's Skies, because it didn't have HOTAS support. I was like, bro, this game needs HOTAS support, because like flying the ship, after you fly a ship and like something like an Elite Dangerous, and you get used to how the controls work because you get so much precision into how you can actually maneuver the ship, and then you have something that's much more beginner friendly, like a No Man's Sky, or like, the hell is this? Space flight for babies? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
The ship automatically levels? What's this? It automatically dodges the ground? No, this is all wrong. you do get a bit of an elitist mentality, because it just feels so good to, like, for instance, in Elite Dangerous you have like the letterbox thing, and you just straight up go in full throttle, pull the brakes at the very last second, full reverse thrusters, drop the friggin' the landing gear, and then it's like it just feels so good. And then trying to do the thing, boosting out of the leather box and failing and slamming into another ship and exploding. Yeah, that happens too.
Yeah, definitely. That's I think everybody has to kind of really experience that sense of like taking off from a base, going to a planet, and like that experience is just super fun. Like I love it.
It feels super good. And it's like, to give you an idea, in Elite Dangerous, I actually got involved in like all of these alien things that happen in the game where they'll bring out alien ships that are super powerful. And I'd be like trying to come up with all kinds of strategies to deal with those ships. I made one ship at a time where there wasn't even like appropriate gear to really fight the aliens, which are called the Thargoids. So I made this giant ship. I spent tons of credits on this giant ship that I made, an Anaconda, fully kitted out just to fight them. And I fought one of them solo. And by the time everything was done and dusted, my ship was at 2% health.
Oh no!
It was all busted up, exploding, like everything. But I killed that sucker. I freaking killed him. Yeah, it's fun times. But anyway, that is pretty much it. That's all I had. Thank you all very much for making the time. I really appreciate it. I've taken so much of your time here today. You guys are super busy over there.
It's been really fun to talk.
Yeah.
Absolute content machines. So what are you guys going to be working on next?
Well, today I'm doing some Blue Protocol stuff, and obviously, like, there's just been a lot of content to do in general with all the games coming out, and spooling up external projects as well, like more T-shirts, more punchies. Yeah, more punchies.
You know why there's only 2 here?
Why?
Because my kid stole the other 2. So my daughter picked the Paolumu, and my son obviously picked Zinogre.
Yeah. It's always so scary, like, doing a project like that, because we've gone through so many iterations and whatever, and we're so close to the project, we don't even know if people are going to like it or not, so it's nice to see that people like them, and we try to bring out something that's, like, of quality that we would buy ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And hopefully people think it's a quality product.
Like, let me tell you, I opened these during a Monster Hunter stream, and when I pulled out the Nergigante, because I took him out of the box for the first time during that stream, I was like, oh my god, the spikes on it are like a different texture and everything.
Nice.
Like, it's very well done. And at the time, I didn't even know you could take out the ponchies. I was just like, oh, these are just like that. No, you can just like take them out. When I first I was like, what? You can take this out? That's insane. So
Sick.
yeah, these are freaking awesome. These and the t-shirts. The t-shirts also really, So yeah, that's what you're working on. How about you, not 26? Sorry, Paradise. What are you working on? 26 doing
a little bit
Protocol?
of everything.
Yeah,
Blue Protocol stuff's coming up. A little bit of everything. You know, we've obviously like constantly keeping our eye on Monster Hunter with what's going on with that, next title updates, all that kind of stuff. There's been a lot of different like interesting games with different trailers that have dropped. So.
I forgot to ask you guys about something. Exoprimal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd you guys feel about that?
I actually like it. It's a fun game. It's a little fun game. I wasn't expecting it to be fun. It looks like a B-tier game. It looks like something that you spend 10 minutes on and you'd be like, this is rubbish. But we actually went in and it was like, your team is behind. And I was like, wow, I need to get in front.
Dude, the amount of times the Leviathan AI was telling me, your team is completing objectives slower than the enemy team.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, I've heard it. And then he says it again and again and again. Jono told me it's like, we're really going for the negative reinforcement. And I was like, I could tell.
You see, I love dinosaur games in general, so anything that has dinosaurs in it, I'm kind of like biased towards. And the fact that they've got some cool ones, and the fact that you can control the dinosaurs at different points as well to invade the enemy team. I don't like. Did you get to experience that as well when you played?
No, because I would always be playing tank or healer, so I never really did the dominator thing. I mean, I did in the tutorial, so I know what it's like. But most of the time, I'd be either a tank or healer, so I don't get to take the big dinosaur and go harass other people.
It's really fun to do it. You can see the terror in the other players when they're like running away from you. But they did. I think it comes down to it being like a horde shooter basically, and I think they did it quite well and satisfying. And like you say, did you play the tank with the big shield? Like the
I
Reinhardt?
played all of the characters a little bit, but yeah, I like the tank with the shield, I think, more. Initially, I thought it was weird because I felt like I think that it's very situational because there are situations where the tank with the shield is actually a hindrance to your team because you're not contributing. If there's like flyers or something like that, you're just sitting there like, yeah. That's the thing. I mean, you can kind of taunt them so that they don't harass the other team members, but that's about it. But yeah, I felt like it's situational. But the second time I played him, it was really good because there were just like hordes and hordes of dinos, and I was just constantly like, boosh, shield slam, good stuff.
Yeah. We went in not knowing what to expect, and we came out thinking this was actually pretty fun. And if because I believe in the beta there was like no progressions or things you could unlock or buy with the currency. And so when you're actually playing the game, I'm hoping that there is going to be that satisfying, like you play it, you come out with some currency and some levels, unlock a new thing, power up an ability, and it's that progression cycle that I think will make it really fun.
What would be the biggest thing that you guys would want? Because like one of the things that I've noticed a lot from feedback was that people are like, oh, I wanted more PvE. I don't think I've heard anyone say I want more PvP. Because like the beta focused a lot on like the final PvP engagement. You had PvE all the way up into the final stage, and then you get onto the PvP stuff. And most people are like, oh, I wish I could just do PvE things more so than PvP because they like the action, but they don't want the final confrontation. Where do you guys land with that?
I'm in two spaces here, so I actually quite like PvP in games. I like being competitive. I like competitive shooters and stuff like that. So I found the PvP personally to be quite enjoyable. I can totally see the jarring nature of playing a majority of a match PvE, and there's a whole playstyle to that and a whole team synergy, and then it ultimately comes down to a PvP confrontation. That is weird, right? It's a strange thing to experience. But I think, I could be wrong, I think there's going to be different modes in the full game. So you're going to have your PvE modes, you're going to have your PvEVP modes, which is like the one that we played. But
the thing is, I think it's going to be one playlist, and it's going to be random whether you get the finish as PvP or PvE.
That doesn't. I don't like the sound of that.
Because I did an episode of this with Jono talking specifically about Exoprimal, and I think that was what the current intentions of the team is, to just have this one playlist, and then there's a chance that it culminates in a PvE encounter, or there's a chance that it culminates in a PvP encounter, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't know about that. It's like, to me, it's not really a big deal because I can enjoy both modes, but I know that there's a lot of players, at least in my community, that are like, no, I want more PvE stuff. I don't want to be doing that much PvP. And I understand because like it's very frustrating if you're doing fantastic in PvE and then you get to that final confrontation, you get stomped. It's going to suck.
Yeah. I think as well, there's just people that want to have a chill time.
Yeah.
Like, PvE is more of a chill time. You're not having to stress about being behind the enemy. Even if they kept the other enemy team there, but you just didn't have to fight them. It just adds a competitive nature, but you're fighting dinosaurs. You can jump on with friends. You're just having fun. And there are some people that just don't play any PvP games, right? That's just not for them. They don't like it. And if that is the case, like you say, it's one playlist, then they're losing out on those people because they won't play.
Yeah. Where do you land on it, 2-6?
Oh, for the PvP stuff, well, I, just like Paradise, love a bit of PvP, but in this game, it didn't feel real, like, balanced, or it didn't feel fun to me. Like, Paradise, come on. We went in, we just clapped everybody in PvP. And like, I know that being on the receiving end or something like that's going to be horrid. So, like,
it was fun. It was fun for me. It was fun for us.
2-6 is like, get good scrubs. Y'all sucked. Yeah. Sorry for the stomping.
Sorry, there was literally one that we were about to lose because our team was doing quite badly. We were super far behind, and we just went in and just repeatedly stomped them in the last round, which is what I guess the experience that Capcom is going for. It's like the underdog can come back at the end in the PvP moment, but it felt cruel basically because they had worked so hard.
To me, it's more like it depends on the mode. So, for instance, that mode where you had to go pick up like energy things or whatever. That mode didn't feel that much fun, because it just felt like a bit of a mess. But the payload mode, I was like, this is cool. I like the payload.
Yeah.
And I like the hammer mode too. The hammer mode was a lot
Yeah.
of fun. Because you could just like use the hammer smash stuff. That was cool.
I think the class balance in the PvP is a problem as well, because I think there was definitely some classes in that beta that were just stand so much better in PvP. So it came to like a point where, oh, we're in the final encounter, we're in PvP now. Realistically, everyone now needs to change class to PvP, because you'd have a setup for your PvE. Maybe you'd have a tank, a healer, 2 DPS, say, but then as soon as you get into that PvP situation, there are some classes that you just like, you're gonna get beaten by someone else playing a different class.
Well, we'll see how that turns out in the meta, because stuff floats. Like madness. But the interesting thing was that it didn't seem like it was going to be a game I was super interested in. But then after playing it, I was like, I could see myself playing this every now and then, just a couple of matches. I don't see it becoming like a game that I'm like, oh man, my whole channel's about Exoprimal now, right? I don't see it becoming that, but I see it being something like every now and then jump in, do a couple of matches. That feels like the type of experience that I would go for when it comes to Exoprimal. So
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's definitely like an Xbox Game Pass special right there. That's
Yeah.
what I would say.
it is going to be on Games Pass as well, I think.
Is it? Well,
Yeah,
that's definitely in its favor then.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that Jono said that. Again, you guys can double check that in the actual Conscast that I did with Jono, but I'm pretty sure that I think it's going to be a thing. But
Yeah, I've just done the research. It's a day one Game Pass title,
Oh, that's
Yeah.
sick. Perfect.
which I love these day one Game Pass titles. I like when we were talking about when we were younger and playing games and stuff. If you could just have Game Pass and have all of your games taken care of, and yeah, not every game is in Game Pass, but there's enough in there that
Yeah.
you can't play through all of them. Do you know what I mean? So I think Game Pass is pretty cool.
yeah,
People are mad right now because they've taken away the £1 or $1 Game Pass deal now, so you can't get the Game Pass Ultimate
Of
for
course.
$1. So people are like,
they
why
want
have they taken this away?
they want to get you on the hook. They give you a
Yeah.
little bit, and hey, the first taste's free, and the next one you got to pay for it. It's not free, but you get the idea.
People were looping that as well, so they're just chaining by making new accounts. So they just pay like $1 a month, and then like
I mean,
have
what
it,
did you
every month.
expect? What do you expect was going to happen? Of course, eventually that type of stuff is going to
Yeah.
go away. It's like I think that Game Pass is a really good value proposition, but for me, it's not my thing because I'm too addicted to physical media. I like having the game, and
Yeah, that's
the
cool.
idea of like you have these games that eventually some of them end up leaving. It's just like it triggers my OCD. It's like, no, I want to know that I have this game available whenever I feel like playing it, whether it's today or whether it's 5 years from now. I want to have the game there. I don't want to be like, oh, there was a licensing thing and now the game is gone. It's like, no, I don't want to deal with that.
I want to provide you a counter story to the physical media from my own experience somewhat recently. Okay, so did you ever play Battle for Middle-earth? The RTS Lord of the Rings?
Oh, the RTS, no.
So Battle for Middle-earth 2 specifically was a really good RTS game. And the only way you can play it now is like single player if you have the disc, right? It's not available anywhere digitally. So, and I used to own the game, and it was a sad situation where it was like I lent it to a friend years ago, and then that friend never gave it back, and now it's lost forever. So like months and months, maybe even a couple years ago now, I ended up buying a copy through eBay just because I was like, I want to own the game. Maybe I'll load it up and try it.
Yeah.
So I bought the game, and then I realized my primary PC that I play on,
It's too good.
I don't have a disc drive on it. I can't play it. I don't have a disc drive.
You can get external ones now. There's USB disc drives that you can get. So.
No, you definitely can, and I will probably do that
That's
at some
effort,
point.
though.
But that's effort, and also like in the moment, I was so excited to like it arrived. I want to load it up and give it a try again, nostalgia, and I was like.
Then you look at your computer. Oh, things are different now.
When I bought the computer, I was like, I'm not gonna probably need that. There's extra. I can use it as extra space for storage, and it came to bite me.
It's not only that. Like, there's also, there's a lot of situations where, for instance, look for instance, at Monster Hunter Rise, you can own the physical version of Monster Hunter Rise, but you don't really own Monster Hunter Rise.
Yeah.
Because, like, if the servers go down, what are you going to be doing? You're going to be playing Rise 1.0? Okay. I mean, it's still a good game, but you're missing out on a lot if the servers go down. Yeah. So, unfortunately, that's just the reality we live in. But, you know, it's whatever. Anyway, that's going to be it. Guys, you can check these two out over at Eric's Gaming. There will be links in the description. And once again, thank you for making the time. And I'll see all of you in the next one. Stay strong. Stay safe. Peace out.
Bye-bye.